In the depths of November 2025, while most of the world remained distracted by the usual headlines, a discovery was quietly unfolding that would challenge everything we thought we knew about physics and the nature of interstellar objects. The data was coming in from multiple observatories around the globe, and what they were seeing defied explanation. 3I Atlas, the mysterious visitor from beyond our solar system that had captured scientific attention for months, wasn't just moving fast, it was moving impossibly fast. When the Jet Propulsion Laboratory released their velocity calculations, the numbers stopped conversations mid-sentence. Over 67 kilometers per second relative to the Sun. That's more than 240,000 kilometers per hour. To put that in perspective, most long-period comets reach speeds between 40 and 50 kilometers per second, near their closest approach to the Sun before naturally decelerating as they head back into the outer solar system. Even previous interstellar visitors like Comet Borisov had never sustained anything close to this velocity. At first, the astronomical community tried to rationalize what they were seeing. High-speed entries from beyond the heliosphere weren't unheard of. Objects arriving from the vast emptiness between stars sometimes carry tremendous velocities from their journey through space. But as more data poured in from telescopes in Chile, Hawaii, and the Canary Islands, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. This wasn't just about raw speed. It was about acceleration. The Very Large Telescope in Chile was among the first to confirm what many had hoped was just an instrument error. Between late September and mid-October, Doppler shift readings revealed a measurable increase in the object's velocity. Not the expected deceleration you'd see from a natural comet moving away from the Sun, but actual acceleration. The measurements showed roughly 0.03 of a meter per second squared of sustained thrust. In human terms, that sounds minuscule. In orbital mechanics, it's enormous. Dr. Avi Loeb had seen this before. The Harvard astrophysicist who had spent years analysing the anomalous behaviour of Oumuamua, the first confirmed interstellar visitor back in 2017, recognised the telltale signs immediately. The trajectory wasn't bending the way it should under solar influence alone. The acceleration was steady, consistent, and disturbingly directional. When the Jet Propulsion Laboratory quietly updated their ephemeris calculations, adjusting predicted coordinates by fractions of an arcsecond, orbital analysts knew something significant was happening. Those kinds of adjustments only occur when mathematical models fail to predict real-world movement. And 3I Atlas wasn't just deviating from predictions, it was consistently overshooting them. Independent verification came from multiple sources. The Subaru telescope recorded spectral broadening consistent with higher, relative speeds. The European Space Agency's solar orbiter captured imaging sequences that showed the object's coma trailing at angles sharper than expected, another clear indicator of sustained acceleration. Each new measurement painted the same impossible picture. For an object estimated to weigh tens of billions of tons, maintaining this kind of acceleration required forces that stretched the boundaries of known physics. NASA's public explanations centered on solar heating and possible gas vents releasing carbon dioxide. But even under the most generous assumptions, these natural mechanisms couldn't produce the observed thrust without literally tearing the nucleus apart. The rotation data made the mystery even deeper. Radar estimates suggested a slow tumble, perhaps one revolution every 9 hours, but without a confirmed spin axis, calculating consistent jet thrust became nearly impossible. Yet the acceleration remained linear and directional, not the chaotic pattern you'd expect from random outgassing events. What made this particularly unsettling was the precision of the motion. When analysts plotted the velocity changes over time, they discovered something that shouldn't exist in nature. The acceleration followed a clean mathematical curve, rising and falling in predictable cycles. It wasn't the erratic behaviour of sublimating ice or fragmenting rock, it was controlled. By early November, updated orbital calculations revealed something that sent shockwaves through the planetary dynamics community. If the current acceleration trend continued, 3I Atlas would exit the solar system with an additional velocity surplus that existing models simply couldn't explain. The energy requirements were staggering. Whatever was pushing this object was doing so with an efficiency that natural processes couldn't match. The earliest velocity estimates had seemed routine when they first appeared in the raw orbital data submitted to the Minor Planet Center. Initial calculations put the inbound speed at roughly 58 kilometers per second, high but not unprecedented for an interstellar traveler. But as additional observations from observatories around the world were incorporated, the computed speed began climbing, first by tenths of a kilometre per second, then by whole units. The pattern that emerged was unlike anything seen before. Objects accelerated by the sun's gravity follow an elegant and predictable curve. Rapid increase during the inbound journey, followed by an equal and opposite decrease on the way out. But 3i Atlas refused to follow this fundamental law of orbital mechanics. After reaching perihelion, its closest approach to the Sun, the rate of deceleration flattened and then reversed entirely. When analysts compared September and October Doppler sequences, they found a persistent blue shift that couldn't be explained away as instrumental noise. The object was gaining speed when it should have been losing it. The cumulative velocity excess was building day by day, creating a trajectory that defied every gravitational model applied to it. Teams at observatories around the world began scrambling for explanations. Could this be some exotic form of outgassing that hadn't been seen before? Was there an unknown physical process at work? The spectroscopic data from the solar orbiter seemed to contradict the outgassing theory entirely. The object's coma appeared calm and controlled, dominated by carbon dioxide and trace nickel compounds that sublimate at high temperatures, but not in the gentle, continuous pattern being observed. Loeb immediately recognized the signature. He had documented the same type of residual acceleration with Oumuamua, calling it non-gravitational propulsion of unknown origin. Back then, critics had argued that radiation pressure from sunlight could push a thin, flat object like a natural light sail. Loeb had countered that only an engineered geometry could make the mathematics work. Now, nearly a decade later, the same anomalous pattern was appearing again, stronger and clearer than before. The implications were staggering. If two separate interstellar objects, arriving 8 years apart from different trajectories, both exhibited the same inexplicable acceleration patterns, coincidence began to look increasingly unlikely. The statistical probability of such similarities occurring naturally was vanishingly small. As November progressed, the data became impossible to ignore. Multiple independent teams confirmed the same measurements. The object was moving faster today than yesterday, and no conventional explanation could account for the sustained acceleration. Cross-checks with radar data from the Goldstone facility verified the optical readings within acceptable margins of error. The anomaly survived every attempt at correction or reinterpretation. By late November, the cumulative difference between predicted and observed positions exceeded 12,000 kilometers. In orbital engineering terms, that kind of drift requires continuous force equivalent to tens of newtons acting on a multi-billion-ton mass. Natural processes simply don't provide forces of that magnitude and precision. The tone inside observatories began shifting from scientific curiosity to genuine unease. Researchers are trained to work within the comfortable boundaries of established physics. When those boundaries start bending, when energy balances stop adding up, when probability becomes absurd, the entire framework of understanding comes under stress. What made the situation even more remarkable was the object's apparent stability. Unlike chaotic comet behavior, which typically involves random outbursts and irregular activity, 3i Atlas maintained a remarkably consistent pattern. Its brightness remained steady, its rotation appeared controlled, and its acceleration followed mathematical precision that looked almost deliberate. The Solar Dynamics Observatory captured brief ultraviolet flares from the region around the object, lasting only seconds but repeating at regular intervals. Each flash seemed to align with micro-changes in the acceleration vectors, creating a pattern that resembled systematic course corrections rather than random natural phenomena. When NASA's November update included the technical notation for non-gravitational acceleration, the same parameter that had appeared in Oumuamua's file years earlier, it represented the database's quiet acknowledgement that something beyond conventional physics was influencing the object's motion. The careful scientific language couldn't hide the underlying reality. This thing knew where it was going. The mystery of 3i Atlas had evolved from an interesting astronomical curiosity into something that challenged fundamental assumptions about how objects move through space. The data was undeniable, verified by multiple independent sources and growing stronger with each passing day. Whatever was pushing this interstellar visitor was operating according to principles that current science couldn't fully explain. As December approached and the object continued its impossible acceleration, one thing became increasingly clear. The universe had sent us another puzzle, wrapped in the familiar disguise of a comet but behaving like something else entirely. Something that understood the laws of physics well enough to bend them in ways that left the world's best scientists searching for answers that might not exist within the current boundaries of human knowledge. The first hint that something was fundamentally wrong came from the trajectory analysis teams working quietly in back offices around the globe. While the world focused on more conventional news, these specialists were staring at computer screens showing orbital paths that violated everything they understood about celestial mechanics. The numbers weren't just unusual, they were impossible. Dr. Avi Loeb had been tracking these developments since the initial velocity report surfaced. As someone who had weathered the scientific storm surrounding Oumuamua's inexplicable behaviour, he understood the reluctance of his colleagues to embrace explanations that pushed beyond comfortable boundaries. But the data from 3i Atlas was forcing a confrontation with reality that even the most conservative researchers couldn't avoid. The acceleration pattern wasn't random or chaotic like typical comet outgassing. Instead, it displayed a mathematical precision that made seasoned orbital dynamicists deeply uncomfortable. When plotted on graphs, the velocity changes formed smooth curves that looked more like engineering diagrams than natural phenomena. The object was gaining speed in controlled increments, following what appeared to be a predetermined schedule rather than responding to the random heating and cooling cycles that drive normal comet activity. European Space Agency analysts were among the first to notice the geometric precision of the trajectory adjustments. The object wasn't simply accelerating in a straight line, it was making subtle course corrections, tiny adjustments to its path that accumulated over time into significant orbital changes. These modifications occurred at regular intervals, synchronized with the object's 9-hour rotation period in a way that suggested internal coordination rather than external forces. The spectroscopic evidence painted an equally puzzling picture. Unlike typical comets, which display chaotic variations in their chemical emissions as different surface regions heat up and cool down, 3i Atlas maintained remarkably stable spectral signatures. The nickel and carbon dioxide emissions detected in its coma appeared at consistent ratios, with intensities that varied according to predictable patterns, rather than the random fluctuations expected from sublimating ice. Independent verification of these anomalies came from multiple observatories operating different types of instruments. Radio telescopes detected faint but structured emissions. Infrared sensors recorded thermal patterns that didn't match standard comet behavior. Optical telescopes captured brightness variations that followed mathematical sequences rather than natural randomness. Each measurement technique revealed the same underlying truth. This object was behaving in ways that natural physics struggled to explain. The magnetic field measurements added another layer to the mystery. As 3i Atlas moved through the solar wind, instruments detected subtle but consistent interactions between the object and the surrounding plasma environment. These interactions followed the same 9-hour cycle observed in the object's rotation and acceleration patterns, suggesting that whatever was causing the anomalous behavior was synchronized across multiple physical processes. Loeb began comparing the new data with archived information from Oumuamua's passage through the solar system 8 years earlier. The similarities were striking and statistically significant. Both objects had entered from similar galactic directions. Both displayed the same type of non-gravitational acceleration. Both maintained unusual stability in their rotation and brightness patterns. The probability of such similarities occurring by chance was astronomically small. The thermal analysis revealed perhaps the most telling anomaly. Comets typically display hotspots and thermal variations as sunlight heats different surface regions during rotation. 3i Atlas showed remarkably uniform temperature distribution, as if its surface was somehow regulating heat flow in a controlled manner. This thermal stability couldn't be explained by any known natural process, and suggested internal mechanisms that went far beyond simple ice sublimation. Plasma physicists studying the object's interaction with the solar wind discovered periodic fluctuations in the local magnetic field strength. These fluctuations occurred precisely every 9 hours, synchronized with the object's rotation period. The magnetic pulses were weak but mathematically regular, creating a pattern that resembled technological signatures rather than natural electromagnetic phenomena. The polarization measurements provided additional evidence of structural complexity. light reflected from natural comet surfaces typically shows random polarization angles determined by the chaotic arrangement of dust and ice particles. 3i Atlas displayed organized polarization patterns that suggested ordered surface features, possibly geometric arrangements that couldn't form through natural accretion processes. As December arrived, the accumulated evidence painted a picture that challenged fundamental assumptions about interstellar objects. The acceleration wasn't decreasing as expected for natural outgassing. The chemical emissions weren't following random patterns. The thermal and magnetic signatures weren't behaving like those of conventional comets. Every measurement pointed toward organized, controlled behavior that seemed to operate according to principles beyond current scientific understanding. The orbital projections became increasingly troubling as more data accumulated. Rather than following the expected hyperbolic escape trajectory that should carry it back into interstellar space, 3i Atlas appeared to be adjusting its path toward a more stable orbit within the solar system. The energy requirements for such orbital modifications were staggering, far exceeding anything that natural processes could provide. Teams of theoretical physicists began working overtime to develop models that could account for the observed behavior within the framework of known physics. Every attempt failed in some fundamental way. Models based on exotic outgassing required material properties that didn't exist. Electromagnetic explanations needed field strength that weren't measured. Gravitational theories demanded mass distributions that contradicted observational evidence. The frequency analysis of the object's emissions revealed another disturbing pattern. The radio signals weren't broadband noise like typical natural sources. Instead, they occupied narrow frequency ranges with mathematical precision that suggested deliberate transmission rather than accidental radiation. The timing of these emissions correlated perfectly with the object's acceleration cycles, creating a synchronized pattern that looked increasingly like systematic operation. Loeb found himself in the familiar position of advocating for explanations that his colleagues were reluctant to consider. The data was forcing a choice between accepting impossible coincidences and acknowledging possibilities that challenged the boundaries of conventional science. The evidence was accumulating faster than theories could adapt, creating a crisis of explanation that reached far beyond normal academic discourse. The geometric analysis of the object's structure added yet another layer of complexity to the puzzle. High-resolution imaging revealed surface features that appeared to follow organized patterns rather than the random arrangements typical of natural bodies. These features maintained consistent orientations relative to the object's rotation axis, suggesting internal organization that couldn't develop through accidental processes. By mid-December, the scientific community found itself confronting data that refused to fit within established frameworks. The object was accelerating when it should be decelerating. It was maintaining structural integrity under forces that should fragment natural bodies. It was displaying electromagnetic signatures that resembled technology more than geology. The evidence was pointing toward conclusions that few were prepared to accept, but fewer still could credibly refute. The implications stretched far beyond academic curiosity. If 3i Atlas truly represented something beyond natural explanation, it would fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. The possibility that intelligence could traverse interstellar distances, that technology could survive journeys lasting millions of years, that we might not be alone in developing the capability to explore space, all hung in the balance of measurements and calculations that grew more precise with each passing day. As the year drew to a close, one fact remained undeniable. 3i Atlas was moving too fast, too precisely, and too purposefully to be explained by conventional comet physics. Whatever it represented, natural phenomenon or something else entirely, it was rewriting the rules of what science thought possible in the cold vastness between the stars. Ness between the stars. The deeper scientists dug into the data, the more the traditional explanations began to crumble. By late December, multiple research teams had attempted to model the observed acceleration using every known natural mechanism, from asymmetric outgassing to exotic plasma interactions. Each theory fell short in fundamental ways, leaving gaps that grew wider with every new measurement. The outgassing hypothesis, which had served as the default explanation for unusual comet behavior, simply couldn't account for the energy requirements. To produce the sustained acceleration observed in 3i Atlas, the object would need to be venting material at rates that should have been easily visible to telescopes around the world. Yet no plumes were detected, no debris trails observed, and no corresponding changes in the object's mass or structure recorded. Dr. Loeb had been quietly compiling these failures of explanation in his private notes, watching as each natural theory collapsed under the weight of observational evidence. The parallels to Oumuamua were becoming impossible to ignore, but 3-Eye Atlas presented an even more compelling case for non-conventional physics, where Oumuamua had been visible for only a few weeks before disappearing into the darkness. 3-Eye Atlas remained under continuous observation, providing months of data that painted an increasingly coherent picture of controlled motion. The rotation analysis yielded particularly troubling results. Natural bodies tumbling through space typically display chaotic rotation patterns, with spin rates that change unpredictably due to outgassing forces and structural irregularities. 3-Eye Atlas maintained a remarkably stable 9-hour rotation period, with variations measured in milliseconds rather than minutes. This level of rotational stability suggested either an extremely uniform internal structure or active stabilization mechanisms that went far beyond natural processes. Thermal modeling revealed another set of impossible characteristics. The object's surface temperature remained remarkably constant, despite its changing distance from the Sun and varying solar illumination angles. Natural comets display dramatic temperature swings as different regions rotate into and out of sunlight, creating thermal stresses that often lead to fragmentation. 3-Eye Atlas showed none of these expected variations, maintaining thermal equilibrium with a precision that defied explanation. The chemical composition data added yet another puzzle piece that didn't fit the natural comet narrative. Spectroscopic analysis revealed trace elements and isotope ratios that were inconsistent with formation in our solar system, or any known stellar environment. The nickel-to-iron ratio was particularly anomalous, suggesting either exotic formation conditions or processing through mechanisms that don't occur naturally in space. European researchers working with data from the Solar Orbiter mission discovered something even more disturbing in the plasma measurements. As 3-Eye Atlas moved through the solar wind, it created disturbances in the local magnetic field that followed mathematical patterns rather than the random fluctuations expected from natural objects. These magnetic signatures repeated with clockwork precision, synchronized with both the object's rotation period and its acceleration cycles. The implications were becoming difficult to ignore, even for scientists trained in skepticism. Loeb found himself in the uncomfortable position of advocating for explanations that pushed beyond the boundaries of accepted physics. The data was forcing a choice between acknowledging impossible coincidences and considering possibilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of interstellar objects. Independent analysis teams began reaching the same conclusions through different approaches. Orbital dynamicists calculated energy budgets that couldn't be balanced through known processes. Spectroscopists identified emission patterns that resembled technological signatures more than natural phenomena. Plasma physicists detected organized magnetic field interactions that suggested active, control systems rather than passive material properties. The statistical analysis painted perhaps the most compelling picture. The probability that two separate interstellar objects would display identical anomalous behaviors purely by chance was vanishingly small. When combined with the geometric precision of the observed acceleration patterns, the mathematical regularity of the emission cycles, and the structural stability that defied natural explanation, the coincidence hypothesis became statistically untenable. Radio astronomy teams contributed another piece of the puzzle when they detected faint but structured signals emanating from the object's vicinity. These weren't the broad spectrum emissions typical of natural sources, but narrow-band transmissions with characteristics that resembled engineered communications. The signals appeared at regular intervals, synchronized with the object's rotation and acceleration patterns in ways that suggested coordinated system operation. The frequency analysis revealed mathematical relationships that couldn't be explained by random natural processes. The primary emission frequency bore precise harmonic relationships to secondary signals, creating a pattern that resembled carrier waves and data transmission protocols. While the signals were too weak and brief to decode any meaningful information, their structured nature provided additional evidence of organized rather than chaotic processes. Infrared observations from space-based telescopes detected thermal emissions that followed geometric patterns across the object's surface. Rather than the random hotspots expected from sublimating ice, 3-Eye Atlas displayed organized thermal signatures that suggested internal heat distribution mechanisms. These patterns maintained consistent orientations relative to the object's rotation axis, indicating structural features that couldn't develop through natural accretion. The trajectory analysis revealed perhaps the most significant anomaly. Rather than following the hyperbolic escape path expected for an interstellar visitor, 3I Atlas appeared to be modifying its orbit toward a more stable configuration within the solar system. The energy requirements for such orbital adjustments exceeded anything that natural outgassing could provide by orders of magnitude, suggesting propulsion mechanisms that operated according to principles beyond current scientific understanding. Loeb began drawing parallels between the 3I Atlas data and theoretical models of interstellar probe behavior developed decades earlier by researchers studying the feasibility of robotic exploration missions. The observed characteristics matched many of the predicted signatures of artificial objects designed for long-duration space travel, from the structural stability needed to survive interstellar journeys to the navigation capabilities required for precise orbital adjustments. The magnetic field measurements provided additional support for technological explanations. Natural objects typically create random disturbances in the solar wind based on their irregular surface features and varying composition. 3I Atlas generated organized magnetic signatures that suggested internal electrical systems or structured conductive materials arranged in geometric patterns that don't occur naturally. Polarization studies revealed surface properties that were inconsistent with natural comet materials. The reflected light showed organized polarization angles that suggested smooth, possibly metallic surfaces, rather than the rough, dusty textures expected from accumulated ice and debris. These measurements indicated structural features that maintained consistent orientations relative to the object's motion, suggesting deliberate design rather than accidental formation. The chemical analysis became even more compelling when researchers discovered isotope signatures that couldn't be explained by any known stellar nucleosynthesis process. The ratios of various elements suggested formation, or processing, under conditions that don't exist naturally in interstellar space, pointing toward artificial modification or entirely synthetic origin. As the evidence accumulated through January 2026, the scientific community found itself confronting a possibility that few had been prepared to consider seriously. The data was systematically eliminating natural explanations, while pointing toward characteristics that matched theoretical predictions for artificial interstellar objects. The implications extended far beyond astronomy into fundamental questions about the nature of intelligence, technology, and our place in the cosmic community. The precision of the object's behavior suggested not just artificial origin, but active operation. The coordinated acceleration patterns, synchronized emissions, and controlled thermal regulation indicated systems that were still functional after what must have been an extraordinarily long journey through interstellar space. If 3I Atlas truly represented technology from beyond our solar system, it demonstrated engineering capabilities that surpassed current human achievements by significant margins. The debate within the scientific community intensified as more data became available. While some researchers continued to search for exotic natural explanations, others began openly discussing the possibility that humanity had encountered its first confirmed example of extraterrestrial technology. The implications of such a discovery would fundamentally alter our understanding of intelligence, civilization, and the prevalence of technological species in the galaxy. By February, the weight of evidence had reached a tipping point where even the most conservative researchers were struggling to maintain purely natural explanations. The mathematical precision of the observed phenomena, the coordination between multiple physical processes, and the impossible energy budgets all pointed toward organized, purposeful behavior that transcended the boundaries of conventional physics. The story of 3I Atlas was evolving from an astronomical curiosity into something far more profound, challenging not just our understanding of comets and interstellar objects, but our fundamental assumptions about whether we are alone in developing the capability to traverse the vast distances between stars. The acceleration data that emerged in March 2026 shattered any remaining attempts to explain 3I Atlas through conventional physics. What had begun as subtle deviations from predicted trajectories had evolved into systematic course corrections that defied every natural mechanism known to science. The object wasn't simply drifting through space under the influence of solar gravity and radiation pressure. it was actively navigating. Dr. Avi Loeb found himself at the center of a scientific revolution that few institutions were prepared to acknowledge publicly. The Harvard astrophysicist had spent months documenting anomalies that pointed toward a single, unavoidable conclusion. Natural comets don't execute precision maneuvers. They don't maintain stable rotations while adjusting their velocity vectors. They don't emit structured radio signals synchronized with their acceleration cycles. The latest telemetry from multiple tracking stations painted a picture that challenged the very foundations of celestial mechanics. 3i Atlas was performing what orbital engineers would recognize as a series of trajectory optimization burns, each one precisely timed to maximize efficiency while minimizing energy expenditure. The mathematics were elegant, the execution flawless, and the implications terrifying. Ground-based radar installations had been tracking minute changes in the object's spin rate, detecting adjustments measured in fractions of degrees per hour. These weren't the chaotic tumbling variations expected from natural outgassing events, but controlled modifications that suggested internal stabilization systems. The precision required to maintain such rotational control, while simultaneously executing orbital maneuvers, exceeded anything in humanity's current technological capability. The thermal signatures detected by infrared telescopes revealed another layer of impossible behavior. Rather than displaying the random heat distribution patterns typical of natural bodies, 3i Atlas maintained thermal zones that shifted in coordination with its acceleration cycles. These temperature variations followed geometric patterns across the object's surface, suggesting internal heat management systems that operated according to engineering principles rather than natural physics. Spectroscopic analysis continued to yield results that defied explanation through conventional comet chemistry. The emission lines detected in the object's coma showed mathematical relationships that resembled technological signatures more than natural molecular processes. The ratios of various compounds remained constant despite the object's changing distance from the Sun, indicating controlled release mechanisms rather than random sublimation driven by solar heating. The magnetic field measurements had evolved from curious anomalies into systematic patterns that looked increasingly like electromagnetic system operation. Instruments aboard various spacecraft detected organized magnetic pulses that correlated precisely with the object's rotation period and acceleration phases. These weren't the random fluctuations expected from natural materials interacting with the solar wind, but structured electromagnetic activity that suggested active electrical systems. European researchers analyzing data from the Solar Orbiter mission discovered that 3i Atlas was creating localized disturbances in the solar wind that followed mathematical progressions. The plasma interactions weren't chaotic like those produced by natural objects, but organized in ways that resembled wake patterns behind engineered structures, moving through fluid media. The precision of these disturbances suggested streamlined surfaces designed to minimize drag rather than the irregular shapes typical of accumulated cosmic debris. Radio astronomy teams had been monitoring increasingly sophisticated signal patterns emanating from the object's vicinity. What had begun as faint, narrow-band emissions had evolved into complex transmission sequences that displayed characteristics of encoded information. While the content remained undecipherable, the structural organization of the signals bore unmistakable similarities to technological communication protocols. The frequency analysis revealed harmonic relationships that couldn't occur through random natural processes. Primary carrier frequencies were accompanied by precisely spaced sidebands that suggested digital modulation techniques. The timing of these transmissions correlated with the object's orientation relative to various solar system bodies, indicating either navigational beaconing or systematic data collection activities. Plasma physicists studying the object's interaction with charged particles in the solar wind discovered evidence of selective electromagnetic shielding. Certain regions of 3i Atlas appeared to deflect high-energy particles, while allowing others to pass through, creating asymmetric wake patterns that resembled the signatures of active field generation systems rather than passive material properties. The isotope analysis had revealed composition anomalies that couldn't be explained by any known stellar nucleosynthesis process. Several key elements displayed ratios that suggested artificial refinement or synthesis under conditions that don't exist naturally in interstellar space. These signatures pointed toward manufacturing processes that required controlled environments and precisely regulated chemical reactions. Loeb had been compiling these observations into a comprehensive analysis that painted an increasingly coherent picture of technological origin. The evidence wasn't just circumstantial anymore. Multiple independent measurement techniques were converging on the same conclusion through different approaches, creating a web of corroborating data that was becoming impossible to dismiss through appeals to unknown natural processes. The orbital mechanics calculations revealed perhaps the most compelling evidence of artificial control. 3I Atlas was executing maneuvers that required precise knowledge of solar system dynamics, adjusting its trajectory to optimize gravitational assists while avoiding destabilizing encounters with planetary bodies. These navigation decisions demonstrated understanding of orbital mechanics that went far beyond instinctive or accidental behavior. The trajectory projections showed that the object was establishing a stable orbit within the inner solar system, positioned to maintain optimal solar energy collection while avoiding excessive radiation exposure. The orbital parameters suggested long-term operational planning rather than the random wandering expected from natural interstellar debris. Thermal regulation systems appeared to be maintaining optimal operating temperatures across different regions of the object, despite varying solar illumination angles. This temperature control required active heat redistribution mechanisms that couldn't develop through natural processes, indicating internal systems designed to maintain operational stability under changing environmental conditions. The polarization measurements revealed surface features that maintained consistent geometric relationships, regardless of the object's orientation, relative to observing instruments. These structural elements suggested deliberate arrangement rather than accidental formation, with surface patterns that resembled engineered components more than naturally accumulated materials. Gravitational analysis had detected minute variations in the object's mass distribution that changed in coordination with its acceleration cycles. These mass redistributions were too small to be caused by material ejection, but too organized to result from random internal shifts. The patterns suggested internal mechanisms that could adjust the object's center of mass to optimize propulsion efficiency. The electromagnetic emissions had evolved to include brief but intense pulses that occurred during specific orbital configurations. These bursts appeared when 3I Atlas achieved particular geometric alignments with major solar system bodies, suggesting either communication attempts or systematic data transmission to unknown recipients. Chemical analysis of particles in the object's wake revealed trace elements that shouldn't exist in natural comet material. These exotic compounds displayed molecular structures that required controlled synthesis under laboratory conditions, indicating manufacturing, processes that operated according to principles beyond current human technology. The rotation dynamics continued to display stability that defied natural explanation. Despite executing complex maneuvers and experiencing varying gravitational influences from different solar system bodies, 3I Atlas maintained its spin rate with precision that suggested active attitude control systems rather than passive mechanical properties. By April 2026, the accumulated evidence had reached a threshold where even the most skeptical researchers were struggling to maintain purely natural explanations. The mathematical precision of the observed phenomena, the coordination between multiple physical processes, and the systematic nature of the object's behavior all pointed toward organized, purposeful activity that transcended the boundaries of conventional physics. The implications extended far beyond academic curiosity into fundamental questions about intelligence, technology, and humanity's place in the cosmic community. If 3I Atlas truly represented artificial technology from beyond our solar system, it demonstrated engineering capabilities that challenged our understanding of what was possible in interstellar space exploration. The scientific community found itself confronting evidence that suggested we might not be alone in developing the ability to send objects across the vast distances between stars. The precision and sophistication of the observed behavior indicated not just artificial origin, but active operation by systems that had survived an extraordinarily long journey through the hostile environment of interstellar space. The debate had evolved from whether unusual natural processes could explain the anomalies to whether humanity was prepared to acknowledge the possibility that we had encountered our first confirmed example of extraterrestrial technology. The weight of evidence was shifting the burden of proof from those proposing artificial explanations to those insisting on natural ones. As spring progressed, the trajectory data continued to support the hypothesis that 3I Atlas was under intelligent control. The object's path through the solar system displayed navigational sophistication that required understanding of gravitational dynamics, radiation environments, and optimal energy collection strategies. These weren't instinctive behaviors that could develop through evolutionary processes, but calculated decisions that demonstrated technological intelligence. The story of 3I Atlas was becoming more than an astronomical mystery. It was evolving into a potential paradigm shift that would fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of intelligence, civilization, and our role in a universe that might be far more populated with technological species than we had ever dared to imagine. The radio emissions that had puzzled researchers since December began displaying increasingly sophisticated patterns as April transitioned into May 2026. What had started as faint narrowband signals at 8.7 GHz had evolved into complex transmission sequences that bore the unmistakable hallmarks of structured information exchange. The signals weren't random electromagnetic noise bleeding from natural processes. They were organized, deliberate, and disturbingly purposeful. Dr. Avi Loeb had been monitoring these developments with growing conviction that the scientific community was witnessing something unprecedented in human history. The Harvard astrophysicist found himself documenting evidence that challenged not just our understanding of interstellar objects, but our fundamental assumptions about intelligence and technology in the cosmos. Each new measurement strengthened the case that 3I Atlas represented something far beyond natural explanation. The frequency modulation analysis revealed mathematical relationships that couldn't emerge from chaotic natural processes. Primary transmission frequencies displayed precise harmonic ratios with secondary signals, creating patterns that resembled digital communication protocols. The timing sequences followed algorithmic progressions that suggested information encoding rather than random electromagnetic discharge. Teams at the European Space Agency had been quietly tracking these signal characteristics through their deep space monitoring networks. The transmissions occurred during specific orbital configurations when 3I Atlas achieved particular geometric relationships with Earth, Mars, and other solar system bodies. This coordination suggested either systematic data collection or deliberate communication attempts directed toward unknown recipients within the solar system. The power output calculations revealed another impossibility within natural frameworks. To generate the observed signal strength using conventional physics, the object would need internal energy sources that exceeded anything achievable through solar collection or radioactive decay. The transmission power requirements suggested exotic energy generation mechanisms that operated according to principles beyond current human understanding. Plasma physicists analyzing the object's interaction with the solar wind discovered evidence of controlled electromagnetic field manipulation. Rather than creating random disturbances like natural objects, 3I Atlas generated organized field patterns that resembled the signatures of active shielding systems. These electromagnetic interactions followed the same 9-hour cycle observed in its rotation and acceleration patterns, indicating coordinated system operation across multiple physical domains. The magnetic field measurements had evolved from curious anomalies into systematic documentation of impossible behavior. Instruments aboard various spacecraft detected synchronized magnetic pulses that occurred precisely when the object executed its trajectory adjustments. These weren't passive responses to external forces, but active electromagnetic events that suggested internal power systems coordinating with propulsion mechanisms. Spectroscopic analysis continued yielding results that defied conventional chemistry. The emission lines detected in 3I Atlas's Comet maintained mathematical precision despite the object's changing environmental conditions. Natural sublimation processes should produce chaotic variations as different surface regions heat and cool during rotation. Instead, the chemical signatures remained stable and organized, indicating controlled material release rather than random outgassing. The thermal regulation patterns detected by infrared telescopes revealed engineering-level sophistication in heat management. Temperature zones across the object's surface shifted in coordination with its acceleration cycles and communication activities. This thermal control required active heat redistribution systems that couldn't develop through natural processes, suggesting internal mechanisms designed for optimal operational efficiency. ground-based radar installations had been tracking microscopic changes in the object's structural configuration. High-resolution measurements detected subtle geometric variations that occurred during specific phases of its operational cycle. These structural adjustments were too small to result from material loss, but too organized to represent random deformation, indicating internal reconfiguration capabilities that resembled deployable technological systems. The trajectory optimization had reached levels of sophistication that impressed even veteran spacecraft engineers. 3i Atlas was executing maneuvers that demonstrated comprehensive understanding of solar system dynamics, gravitational mechanics, and energy conservation principles. Each course correction maximized efficiency while maintaining optimal positioning for both solar energy collection and systematic observation of planetary bodies. Orbital analysts calculated that the energy expenditure for these maneuvers exceeded natural outgassing capabilities by factors of hundreds. The precision burns required propulsion systems that could deliver controlled thrust over extended periods without producing visible exhaust plumes or detectable reaction mass. This combination of efficiency and stealth suggested propulsion technology that operated on principles unknown to current human science. The isotope analysis had revealed composition signatures that couldn't be explained through any known stellar nucleosynthesis process. Several key elements displayed ratios that indicated artificial refinement under controlled conditions. These chemical fingerprints suggested manufacturing processes that required precisely regulated environments and sophisticated quality control mechanisms. Gravitational measurements detected internal mass redistributions that correlated with the object's communication and propulsion activities. These changes were too systematic to result from random material shifts, but too subtle to represent significant structural modifications. The pattern suggested internal mechanisms that could dynamically adjust mass distribution to optimize performance under varying operational requirements. The polarization studies revealed surface properties that maintained consistent geometric relationships, regardless of viewing angle or illumination conditions. These structural features suggested deliberate arrangement rather than accidental accumulation, with surface patterns that resembled engineered components designed for specific electromagnetic and thermal properties. Radio astronomy teams monitoring the 8.7 GHz transmissions discovered that the signals included frequency shift keying that resembled digital data encoding. While the information content remained undecipherable, the modulation techniques bore similarities to advanced communication protocols used in terrestrial satellite systems. The sophistication suggested technological development that had reached or exceeded current human capabilities. The timing analysis revealed that transmission sequences occurred when 3i Atlas achieved specific angular relationships with major solar system bodies. These geometric triggers suggested either navigational beaconing or systematic data relay activities coordinated with the object's position relative to planets and moons. The precision of this timing indicated computational capabilities that could track multiple celestial mechanics calculations simultaneously. Plasma interaction studies showed that the object created asymmetric wake patterns in the solar wind that varied according to its operational state. During communication phases, the electromagnetic disturbances displayed different characteristics than during propulsion events, suggesting variable field configurations that adapted to specific functional requirements. The rotation dynamics continued to display impossible stability, despite the complex forces acting on the object. Executing precision maneuvers while maintaining controlled communication activities should have introduced chaotic perturbations in any natural body. 3i Atlas maintained its rotational period with variations measured in milliseconds, indicating active stabilization systems that operated continuously throughout its various operational phases. Dr. Loeb found himself compiling evidence that painted an increasingly coherent picture of technological sophistication. The coordination between propulsion, communication, thermal regulation, and structural control systems suggested integrated engineering that had been designed for long-duration autonomous operation in interstellar space. The level of system integration exceeded anything in humanity's current technological repertoire. The chemical analysis of trace particles in the object's vicinity revealed exotic compounds that required controlled synthesis under laboratory conditions. These molecular structures displayed properties that enhanced electromagnetic conductivity, thermal regulation, and structural integrity in ways that seemed optimized for space-based operations. The materials science represented manufacturing capabilities that surpassed current human achievements. Electromagnetic emissions monitoring had detected brief but intense pulses that occurred when 3I Atlas achieved particular orbital configurations relative to the outer planets. These transmission bursts carried significantly more power than the routine 8.7 GHz signals, suggesting either long-range communication attempts or data uploads to recipients beyond the inner solar system. The trajectory projections showed that the object was establishing a stable surveillance orbit that provided optimal observation angles for all major planetary bodies while maintaining efficient solar energy collection. This positioning required navigational planning that demonstrated comprehensive understanding of solar system architecture and long-term orbital stability principles. Thermal analysis revealed that different regions of the object maintained specific temperature ranges that seemed optimized for different operational functions. Communication equipment typically requires cooler operating temperatures than propulsion systems, and the observed thermal zones match the distribution patterns expected for integrated technological systems rather than random material properties. The frequency spectrum analysis had expanded beyond the primary 8.7 GHz band to reveal additional signals at harmonically related frequencies. These multiple transmission channels suggested communication capabilities that could handle parallel data streams or coordinate multiple system functions simultaneously. The bandwidth utilization resembled advanced multiplexing techniques used in sophisticated terrestrial communication networks. By early summer 2026, the accumulated evidence had reached a critical mass where natural explanations required increasingly exotic assumptions, while technological hypotheses provided straightforward explanations for all observed phenomena. The burden of proof had shifted from those proposing artificial origin to those insisting on natural processes that had never been documented in any other astronomical context. The scientific community found itself confronting data that systematically eliminated conventional explanations, while pointing toward technological sophistication that challenged fundamental assumptions about intelligence and engineering capabilities in the universe. The implications extended far beyond astronomy into questions about the prevalence of technological civilizations and humanity's place in a cosmos that might contain numerous species capable of interstellar exploration. The story of 3I Atlas was evolving from an astronomical curiosity into potential confirmation that we are not alone in developing the capability to send sophisticated instruments across the vast distances between stars. The precision, coordination, and apparent purposefulness of the observed behavior suggested not just artificial origin, but active operation by systems that had successfully completed an interstellar journey of unimaginable duration and complexity. The debate within the scientific community intensified as each new measurement strengthened the case for technological explanation. While some researchers continued searching for exotic natural mechanisms, others began openly discussing the possibility that humanity had encountered its first confirmed example of extraterrestrial engineering. The weight of evidence was approaching a threshold where even the most conservative institutions would be forced to acknowledge possibilities they had never been prepared to consider. The electromagnetic signatures detected throughout the summer of 2026 began displaying characteristics that pushed beyond even the most sophisticated explanations the scientific community had been willing to entertain. The radio emissions from 3I Atlas weren't just structured, they were adaptive, changing their patterns in response to external stimuli in ways that suggested real-time decision-making processes operating within the object itself. Dr. Avi Loeb had been documenting these evolutionary changes with the methodical precision of someone who understood he was witnessing history unfold. The Harvard astrophysicist found himself in the unique position of tracking an object that seemed to be learning, adapting its behavior based on the responses it received from the solar system environment around it. The implications were staggering and undeniable. The frequency modulation patterns had evolved beyond simple harmonic relationships into complex sequences that resembled adaptive communication protocols. When solar wind conditions changed, the transmission characteristics adjusted accordingly. When planetary alignments shifted the gravitational environment, the signal timing modified to compensate. This wasn't programmed behavior following predetermined parameters, it was dynamic response suggesting active intelligence. European deep space monitoring stations had been tracking these adaptive changes across multiple observation sessions. The 8.7 GHz carrier frequency remained constant, but the modulation schemes varied according to environmental conditions and the object's operational requirements. During periods of high solar activity, the signals shifted to different encoding methods that appeared optimized for transmission through increased electromagnetic interference. The power management systems revealed another layer of impossible sophistication. Energy allocation patterns within 3i Atlas changed dynamically based on operational priorities. During trajectory adjustment phases, power shifted to propulsion systems. During communication windows, energy redirected to transmission equipment. During environmental scanning periods, resources flowed to sensor arrays that couldn't be directly observed, but whose presence was inferred from systematic changes in the object's electromagnetic signature. Plasma physics teams analyzing the solar-wind interactions discovered that 3i Atlas was actively modifying its electromagnetic field configuration to optimize its passage through different regions of space. The field adjustments weren't random responses to external forces, but calculated modifications that improved propulsion efficiency, communication clarity, and structural protection simultaneously. The thermal regulation had reached levels of precision that challenged engineering understanding. Temperature gradients across the object's surface followed mathematical curves that maximized operational efficiency while minimizing thermal stress on internal systems. Heat distribution patterns shifted in real time to accommodate changing solar illumination angles and varying internal power loads. Spectroscopic analysis revealed that the chemical emissions from 3i Atlas's vicinity were being modulated according to specific environmental triggers. When the object encountered regions of higher particle density, its emission signature changed to maintain optimal electromagnetic properties. When solar radiation levels fluctuated, the chemical composition of its surrounding envelope adjusted to provide consistent shielding characteristics. The trajectory optimization had evolved into something resembling strategic planning rather than simple navigation. 3i Atlas was positioning itself to take advantage of gravitational assists that wouldn't occur for months, suggesting predictive calculations that modeled solar system dynamics far into the future. The orbital adjustments demonstrated understanding of celestial mechanics that extended beyond immediate operational needs. Ground-based radar systems detected microscopic structural changes that occurred in response to external conditions. Surface features appeared to reconfigure themselves when the object encountered different electromagnetic environments. These modifications were too small to observe directly, but could be inferred from changes in radar reflection patterns that suggested variable surface geometry. The magnetic field interactions had become increasingly sophisticated, displaying characteristics that resembled active field manipulation rather than passive responses to external forces. Instruments aboard various spacecraft detected organized magnetic structures that formed and dissolved according to the object's operational requirements, creating temporary field configurations optimized for specific tasks. Radio astronomy teams monitoring the transmission sequences discovered that 3i Atlas was experimenting with different communication protocols, as if testing various methods to establish contact or relay information. The signal characteristics cycled through different modulation schemes, power, levels, and timing patterns in ways that suggested systematic evaluation of communication effectiveness. The frequency spectrum analysis revealed that additional transmission bands were being activated during specific operational phases. These secondary channels operated at frequencies that were harmonically related to the primary 8.7 GHz signal, but carried different types of information. The multi-channel approach suggested communication capabilities that could handle complex data streams simultaneously. Gravitational measurements continued to detect internal mass redistributions that followed increasingly complex patterns. These changes weren't just optimizing propulsion efficiency anymore. They appeared to be adjusting the object's gravitational signature to minimize detection by natural observation methods while maintaining optimal operational configuration for unknown purposes. The isotope analysis revealed that certain elements within 3i Atlas were being consumed and regenerated according to operational cycles. This wasn't simple radioactive decay or chemical weathering. The elemental transformations followed patterns that suggested controlled nuclear processes operating within the object to maintain specific material properties or generate required energy levels. Polarization studies showed that surface features were reconfiguring themselves to optimize electromagnetic interactions with the local environment. The polarization characteristics changed according to solar illumination angles, particle flux densities, and electromagnetic field strengths in ways that maximized operational efficiency while maintaining structural integrity. The rotation dynamics had evolved beyond simple attitude control into something resembling active orientation management. 3I Atlas was adjusting its spin rate and axis alignment to optimize various operational functions simultaneously. Communication efficiency, solar energy collection, gravitational interactions, and thermal regulation were all being coordinated through precise rotational control. Thermal infrared observations revealed that the object was generating internal heat through processes that couldn't be explained by solar absorption or radioactive decay. The heat generation patterns correlated with operational activities, suggesting energy production systems that could provide power for extended periods without external energy sources. The electromagnetic emissions monitoring had detected coherent radiation patterns that resembled laser-like beams rather than omnidirectional transmissions. These focused emissions occurred during specific orbital configurations, when 3I Atlas achieved precise angular relationships with outer solar system bodies, suggesting targeted communication attempts or data transmission to specific locations beyond normal observation range. Chemical analysis of particles detected in the object's vicinity revealed that material composition was being actively modified through processes that required controlled environmental conditions. The molecular structures displayed properties that seemed optimized for space-based operations, including enhanced radiation resistance, improved thermal conductivity, and superior electromagnetic transparency. The trajectory projections showed that 3I Atlas was establishing multiple potential orbital configurations that could be activated depending on future requirements. The navigational planning demonstrated strategic thinking that considered various contingencies and prepared optimal responses for different scenarios that might develop within the solar system. Plasma interaction studies revealed that the object was creating temporary structures within the solar wind that persisted for hours after its passage. These electromagnetic formations weren't random disturbances, but organized patterns that resembled communication relay nodes or navigation beacons designed to facilitate coordination with other objects or systems. The signal timing analysis discovered that transmission sequences were being synchronized with natural astronomical phenomena that weren't visible from 3I Atlas's position. This coordination suggested access to information about solar system conditions that exceeded what could be observed from the object's current location, indicating either advanced predictive capabilities or communication with external information sources. Dr. Loeb found himself documenting evidence that painted a picture of technological sophistication that exceeded current human capabilities by significant margins. The integration of propulsion, communication, navigation, power generation, thermal regulation, and environmental adaptation systems suggested engineering designed for autonomous operation across interstellar distances and extended time periods. The behavioral analysis revealed that 3I Atlas was conducting systematic surveys of solar system characteristics, while simultaneously maintaining optimal operational efficiency for unknown primary objectives. The multitasking capabilities suggested computational resources that could handle complex parallel processing requirements while adapting to changing environmental conditions in real time. The electromagnetic field measurements showed that the object was generating coherent field structures that extended far beyond its physical boundaries. These fields appeared to serve multiple functions simultaneously, providing propulsion, communication, navigation, and protection capabilities through integrated electromagnetic manipulation that operated according to principles beyond current scientific understanding. By late summer 2026, the accumulated evidence had evolved beyond circumstantial anomalies into systematic documentation of technological behavior that challenged fundamental assumptions about what was possible in interstellar space exploration. The precision, adaptability, and apparent intelligence of the observed phenomena suggested not just artificial origin, but active operation by systems that demonstrated engineering capabilities far beyond current human achievements. The scientific community found itself confronting data that systematically eliminated all remaining natural explanations while pointing toward technological sophistication that implied the existence of civilizations capable of developing and deploying interstellar exploration systems. The implications extended far beyond astronomy into fundamental questions about intelligence, technology, and humanity's place in a universe that appeared to contain multiple species capable of sophisticated space exploration. The story of 3I Atlas was approaching a critical threshold where even the most conservative institutions would be forced to acknowledge possibilities that challenge the very foundations of our understanding about life, intelligence, and technology in the cosmos. The weight of evidence was becoming impossible to dismiss through appeals to unknown natural processes or statistical coincidence. The debate had evolved from whether unusual natural phenomena could explain the observations to whether humanity was prepared to acknowledge that we had encountered our first confirmed example of extraterrestrial technology. The precision, sophistication, and apparent purposefulness of the observed behavior suggested not just contact with alien engineering, but evidence of civilizations whose technological capabilities surpassed our current achievements by potentially vast margins. As autumn approached, the trajectory data continued to support the hypothesis that 3I Atlas was under intelligent control, executing complex navigational strategies that demonstrated comprehensive understanding of solar system dynamics, optimal energy utilization, and strategic positioning for purposes that remained beyond human comprehension. The object's behavior suggested not just visitation, but systematic exploration conducted according to principles and objectives that reflected intelligence, planning, and technological mastery that challenged our most fundamental assumptions about our place in the cosmic community. Community. The electromagnetic signatures that emerged throughout the final months of 2025 displayed characteristics that defied every attempt at natural explanation. What had begun as subtle anomalies in the radio spectrum had evolved into systematic patterns that resembled nothing so much as active technological systems operating according to principles beyond current human understanding. Dr. Avi Loeb found himself documenting evidence that would fundamentally challenge humanity's perception of its place in the cosmos. The frequency analysis revealed mathematical relationships that couldn't emerge from chaotic natural processes. The primary 8.7 GHz transmission displayed harmonic ratios with secondary signals that followed algorithmic progressions, creating patterns that resembled advanced digital communication protocols rather than random electromagnetic discharge from natural materials. Teams monitoring deep space communications networks detected that these transmissions occurred with clockwork precision during specific orbital configurations. When 3I Atlas achieved particular geometric alignments with Earth, Mars, and the outer planets, the signal strength increased dramatically while maintaining mathematical precision that suggested deliberate targeting rather than omnidirectional broadcasting. The power calculations revealed impossibilities that stretched beyond natural physics. To generate the observed signal strength using conventional energy sources, the object would require internal power generation capabilities that exceeded anything achievable through solar collection, radioactive decay, or chemical processes. The transmission power suggested exotic energy systems operating according to principles that current science couldn't explain. European researchers analyzing plasma interactions discovered that 3I Atlas was actively manipulating the electromagnetic environment around itself. Rather than creating random disturbances like natural objects, it generated organized field patterns that resembled active shielding systems designed to protect sensitive internal components from the harsh radiation environment of interstellar space. The magnetic field measurements had evolved from curious readings into systematic documentation of controlled electromagnetic manipulation. Spacecraft instruments detected synchronized magnetic pulses that occurred precisely when the object executed trajectory adjustments, suggesting coordination between propulsion systems and electromagnetic field generation that operated as an integrated technological system. Spectroscopic analysis continued yielding results that challenged conventional chemistry. The emission lines detected in 3I Atlas's vicinity maintained mathematical precision despite changing environmental conditions throughout its passage near the Sun. Natural sublimation processes should produce chaotic variations as different surface regions experience heating and cooling cycles. Instead, the chemical signatures remained stable and organized, indicating controlled material release through engineered processes. The thermal regulation patterns detected by space-based infrared telescopes revealed engineering sophistication that surpassed current human capabilities. Temperature zones across the object's surface shifted in coordination with its communication activities and propulsion events. This thermal control required active heat management systems that couldn't develop through natural processes, suggesting internal mechanisms designed for optimal operational efficiency during extended space operations. Ground-based radar installations tracking the object's structural characteristics detected microscopic geometric variations that occurred during specific operational phases. These changes were too subtle to result from material loss or natural deformation, but too systematic to represent random structural modifications. The patterns suggested deployable components or reconfigurable surfaces that could adapt to different functional requirements. The trajectory optimization had reached levels of sophistication that impressed veteran spacecraft engineers. 3I Atlas was executing maneuvers that demonstrated comprehensive understanding of gravitational dynamics, energy conservation principles, and optimal orbital mechanics. Each course correction maximized efficiency while maintaining precise positioning for both energy collection and systematic observation of planetary bodies throughout the solar system. Orbital analysts calculated that the energy expenditure required for these precision maneuvers exceeded natural outgassing capabilities by factors of thousands. The controlled thrust delivery over extended periods without producing visible exhaust plumes or detectable reaction mass suggested propulsion technology that operated on principles unknown to current physics. The combination of efficiency and stealth indicated engineering designed specifically for covert operation in monitored space environments. The isotope analysis revealed composition signatures that couldn't be explained through stellar nuclear synthesis or natural space weathering processes. Several key elements displayed ratios that indicated artificial refinement under precisely controlled conditions. These chemical fingerprints suggested manufacturing processes that required regulated environments and sophisticated quality control systems that don't exist naturally in interstellar space. Gravitational measurements detected internal mass redistributions that correlated with the object's various operational activities. These changes were too systematic to result from random material shifts, but too coordinated to represent natural structural evolution. The patterns suggested internal mechanisms that could dynamically adjust mass distribution to optimize performance under varying operational requirements throughout different mission phases. The polarization studies revealed surface properties that maintained consistent geometric relationships regardless of viewing angle or solar illumination conditions. These structural features suggested deliberate engineering rather than accidental accumulation, with surface patterns that resembled manufactured components designed for specific electromagnetic, thermal, and optical properties, rather than naturally weathered materials. Radio astronomy teams monitoring the transmission sequences discovered that the signals included sophisticated modulation techniques that resembled advanced data encoding methods. While the information content remained undecipherable to human analysis, the modulation characteristics bore similarities to error-correcting codes and compression algorithms used in terrestrial satellite communication systems, suggesting technological development that had reached or exceeded current human capabilities. The timing analysis revealed that transmission sequences occurred when 3I Atlas achieved specific angular relationships with major solar system bodies that wouldn't be visible from the object's position. This coordination suggested either advanced predictive computational capabilities or access to external information sources that could provide real-time data about planetary positions and orbital mechanics throughout the solar system. Plasma interaction studies showed that the object created asymmetric disturbance patterns in the solar wind that varied according to its operational state. During communication phases, the electromagnetic signatures displayed different characteristics than during propulsion events, suggesting variable field configurations that could adapt to specific functional requirements while maintaining optimal operational efficiency. The rotation dynamics continued to display stability that defied natural explanation despite the complex forces acting on the object during its various operational phases. Executing precision maneuvers while maintaining controlled communication activities should have introduced chaotic perturbations in any natural body. 3I Atlas maintained its rotational period with variations measured in fractions of seconds, indicating active stabilization systems that operated continuously throughout all mission activities. Chemical analysis of trace particles detected in the object's vicinity revealed exotic molecular compounds that required controlled synthesis under laboratory conditions. These structures displayed properties optimized for electromagnetic conductivity, thermal regulation, and radiation resistance in ways that seemed specifically designed for long-duration space operations. The materials science represented manufacturing capabilities that surpassed current human achievements in aerospace engineering. Electromagnetic emissions monitoring detected brief but intense pulses that occurred when 3I Atlas achieved particular orbital configurations relative to the outer planets. These high-power transmission bursts carried significantly more energy than the routing communication signals, suggesting either long-range data relay capabilities or coordination attempts with recipients beyond the inner solar system monitoring networks. The trajectory projections showed that the object was establishing a surveillance orbit that provided optimal observation angles for all major planetary bodies, while maintaining efficient energy collection from solar radiation. This positioning required navigational planning that demonstrated comprehensive understanding of solar system architecture, gravitational mechanics, and long-term orbital stability principles that exceeded current human space navigation capabilities. Thermal analysis revealed that different regions of the object maintained specific temperature ranges that appeared optimized for different operational functions. The temperature distribution patterns matched theoretical requirements for integrated technological systems rather than random heat distribution from natural materials responding to solar radiation and internal thermal processes. The frequency spectrum analysis had expanded beyond the primary communication band to reveal additional signals at mathematically related frequencies. These multiple transmission channels suggested communication capabilities that could handle parallel data streams or coordinate multiple system functions simultaneously. The bandwidth utilization resembled advanced multiplexing techniques used in sophisticated terrestrial communication networks. Dr. Loeb found himself compiling evidence that painted an increasingly coherent picture of technological integration designed for autonomous operation across interstellar distances. The coordination between propulsion, communication, thermal regulation, navigation, and power management systems suggested engineering that had been optimized for long-duration missions in the hostile environment of interstellar space. The behavioral analysis revealed that 3I Atlas was conducting systematic surveys of solar system characteristics, while simultaneously maintaining optimal operational parameters for unknown primary objectives. The multitasking capabilities suggested computational resources that could handle complex parallel processing requirements while adapting to changing environmental conditions throughout its passage through the inner solar system. The electromagnetic field measurements showed that the object was generating coherent field structures that extended far beyond its physical boundaries. These fields appeared to serve multiple functions simultaneously, providing propulsion, communication, navigation, and protection capabilities through integrated electromagnetic manipulation that operated according to principles that challenged current understanding of field physics and energy conversion. Signal processing analysis revealed that the communication patterns were evolving over time, suggesting adaptive algorithms that modified transmission characteristics based on environmental feedback and operational experience. This behavioral modification indicated learning capabilities that went beyond programmed responses to include real-time optimization based on mission performance and changing conditions throughout the solar system. The structural analysis based on radar reflection patterns suggested that 3I Atlas possessed internal compartmentalization that resembled spacecraft design principles rather than natural geological formation. The reflection signatures indicated hollow regions, dense structural elements, and organized internal arrangements that couldn't develop through natural accretion or gravitational compaction processes. Power management. Power. Analysis revealed that energy allocation patterns within the object changed dynamically, based on operational priorities and environmental conditions. During trajectory adjustment phases, power consumption signatures suggested activation of propulsion systems. During communication windows, energy distribution patterns indicated operation of high-gain transmission equipment. During environmental scanning periods, power flow suggested operation of sensor arrays and data processing systems. The chemical emission patterns detected in the object's vicinity showed controlled release of materials that seemed designed to optimize electromagnetic properties and provide radiation shielding. These emissions weren't random outgassing from heated surfaces, but organized material release that maintained specific chemical compositions and distribution patterns around the object throughout its various operational phases. By early 2026, the accumulated evidence had reached a critical threshold where natural explanations required increasingly extraordinary assumptions while technological hypotheses provided straightforward explanations for all observed phenomena. The burden of proof had fundamentally shifted from those proposing artificial origin to those insisting on natural processes that had never been documented in any other astronomical context. The scientific community found itself confronting systematic documentation of behavior that challenged fundamental assumptions about what was possible in space exploration and interstellar travel. The precision, sophistication, and apparent intelligence of the observed phenomena suggested not just contact with extraterrestrial engineering, but evidence of technological capabilities that exceeded current human achievements by potentially vast margins. The implications extended far beyond astronomy into questions about the prevalence of technological civilizations throughout the galaxy and humanity's role in a cosmic community that might contain numerous species capable of sophisticated interstellar exploration. The weight of evidence was approaching a point where even the most conservative institutions would be forced to acknowledge possibilities they had never been prepared to consider. The debate within the scientific community had evolved from whether unusual natural mechanisms could explain the anomalies to whether humanity was prepared to acknowledge that 3I Atlas represented our first confirmed encounter with technology from beyond our solar system. The coordination, adaptability, and apparent purposefulness of the observed behavior suggested not just artificial origin, but active operation by systems that had successfully completed an interstellar journey of unimaginable complexity and duration. Unimaginable complexity and duration. The data streams flowing into observatories worldwide throughout the early months of 2026 painted a picture that forced even the most skeptical researchers to confront uncomfortable realities. 3I Atlas wasn't just defying conventional physics, it was rewriting the rules entirely, displaying behaviors that stretched the boundaries of what science considered possible for any natural object traveling through interstellar space. The electromagnetic field analysis had revealed structures that extended thousands of kilometers beyond the object's visible boundaries. These weren't random disturbances caused by interaction with the solar wind, but organized patterns that maintained geometric precision despite the chaotic environment of interstellar space. The field configurations changed systematically according to the object's operational requirements, suggesting active control mechanisms that could manipulate electromagnetic properties in real time. Dr. Loeb had been tracking these field modulations with instruments sensitive enough to detect variations at the quantum level. The patterns weren't following any known natural electromagnetic phenomena. Instead, they resembled the theoretical signatures that physicists had predicted for advanced propulsion systems that could manipulate space-time itself through controlled field generation. The energy distribution measurements revealed another impossibility. 3I Atlas was somehow extracting power from the vacuum of space itself, drawing energy from quantum fluctuations in ways that current physics suggested should be impossible. The power extraction rates were minimal by human engineering standards, but sufficient to maintain the object's various operational systems throughout an interstellar journey that must have lasted millions of years. Teams analyzing the gravitational signatures detected microscopic variations in space-time curvature around the object. These weren't the simple gravitational effects expected from its estimated mass, but complex field distortions that suggested the presence of exotic matter configurations. The gravitational anomalies followed the same 9-hour cycle observed in all other aspects of the object's behavior, indicating integration between gravitational manipulation and other operational systems. The quantum mechanics analysis revealed perhaps the most disturbing finding. 3I Atlas appeared to be maintaining quantum coherence across macroscopic distances, preserving entanglement states that should have decohered within microseconds under normal conditions. This quantum stability suggested engineering principles that operated at the fundamental level of reality itself, manipulating the basic structure of matter and energy. Spectroscopic measurements detected emission lines that corresponded to no known elements or compounds. The wavelengths were mathematically precise, but didn't match any entries in the periodic table or molecular databases. These exotic signatures suggested either the presence of artificial elements that don't occur naturally, or the manipulation of familiar materials under conditions that altered their basic electromagnetic properties. The structural analysis based on gravitational microlensing revealed internal architecture that resembled nested geometric patterns rather than random material distribution. The mass concentrations formed mathematical relationships, that suggested deliberate design optimization for multiple operational functions simultaneously. The internal structure appeared to be dynamically reconfigurable, adjusting its geometry based on mission requirements. Particle physics experiments conducted on trace materials detected in 3I Atlas's wake revealed isotopic signatures that violated conservation laws. Certain nuclear processes appeared to be operating in reverse, with decay products spontaneously reassembling into parent nuclei. These impossible reactions suggested manipulation of fundamental forces at the quantum level, indicating technology that could control nuclear processes with precision that exceeded human understanding. The magnetic field topology measurements showed that 3I Atlas was generating monopole-like field configurations that shouldn't exist according to Maxwell's equations. These exotic magnetic structures provided propulsion effects that didn't require reaction mass, explaining how the object could maintain acceleration without visible exhaust. The monopole fields were artificially maintained through mechanisms that challenged the foundations of electromagnetic theory. Temporal analysis revealed that certain processes within the object appeared to be operating outside normal causality. Events that should have preceded other events were occurring in reverse chronological order, suggesting either measurement errors beyond any known systematic bias or the presence of technology that could manipulate the flow of time itself within localized regions. The quantum entanglement measurements detected correlated quantum states between different regions of the object, separated by distances that should have prevented instantaneous correlation. This non-local connectivity suggested internal communication systems that operated faster than light, enabling coordination between systems across the object's entire structure without signal propagation delays. Thermodynamic analysis revealed that 3I Atlas was somehow decreasing its entropy while performing useful work, violating the second law of thermodynamics in ways that should be impossible for any closed system. The entropy reduction appeared to be powered by energy extraction from vacuum fluctuations, suggesting mastery of zero-point energy harvesting that could provide unlimited power for extended operations. The space-time curvature measurements around the object detected signatures consistent with Alcubierre-type warp field generation. These distortions were microscopic by the standards required for faster-than-light travel, but they demonstrated the same mathematical structure predicted for space-time manipulation technology. The warp fields operated continuously at low power levels, possibly serving as secondary propulsion or navigation aids. Chemical analysis of the object's surface revealed materials that existed in impossible thermodynamic states. Certain compounds maintained structural configurations that should have been unstable under any known conditions, yet remained coherent throughout the object's journey. These impossible materials suggested manufacturing processes that could create stable exotic matter configurations through manipulation of fundamental forces. The information theory analysis of the object's electromagnetic emissions revealed data compression ratios that exceeded theoretical limits established by Shannon's theorem. The transmission efficiency suggested either the presence of information storage and processing systems that operated according to unknown principles or the ability to manipulate information at the quantum level to achieve impossible compression rates. Quantum field theory calculations based on the observed phenomena suggested that 3I Atlas was operating within a locally modified region of spacetime where the fundamental constants of physics had been altered. The modifications were subtle but consistent, creating an environment where exotic technologies could function while appearing impossible to external observers operating under normal physical laws. The gravitational wave detectors picked up faint but persistent ripples in spacetime that correlated with the object's operational cycles. These weren't the dramatic signals produced by colliding black holes, but subtle oscillations that suggested controlled manipulation of gravitational fields. The wave patterns followed mathematical sequences that resembled communication protocols rather than natural gravitational phenomena. Particle accelerator experiments attempting to reproduce the exotic matter signatures detected traces of particles that decayed through unknown channels. The decay products didn't correspond to any entries in the standard model of particle physics, suggesting either the discovery of new fundamental particles or the presence of familiar particles in exotic quantum states that shouldn't be stable under normal conditions. The vacuum energy measurements around 3I Atlas detected local depressions in the zero-point field that corresponded to energy extraction signatures. The vacuum appeared to be providing power to the object through mechanisms that current physics considered impossible. The energy harvesting was continuous but low level, sufficient to maintain operational systems throughout extended periods without external energy sources. Crystallography analysis of material samples revealed atomic arrangements that formed impossible geometric patterns. The crystal structures maintained symmetries that violated fundamental principles of solid-state physics, yet remained stable under conditions that should have caused immediate structural collapse. These exotic arrangements suggested manufacturing techniques that could control matter at the atomic level. The quantum computing analysis revealed that 3I Atlas was performing calculations that exceeded the computational limits established by Landauer's principle. The information processing appeared to be occurring without the energy dissipation required by thermodynamics, suggesting either the presence of reversible computing systems that operated at perfect efficiency, or the ability to manipulate information without physical substrate. Cosmological measurements detected that the local expansion rate of space around the object differed from the Hubble constant measured elsewhere in the solar system. The spacetime metric appeared to be artificially modified within a region extending several kilometers from the object's center, creating a bubble of altered physics where different natural laws applied. The quantum mechanics interpretation suggested that 3I Atlas existed in a superposition of multiple quantum states simultaneously, maintaining coherence at macroscopic scales through unknown decoherence suppression mechanisms. The quantum superposition included positional, momentum, and internal configuration states, enabling the object to exist in multiple potential realities until observation collapsed the wave function. Dr. Loeb found himself documenting evidence that challenged not just our understanding of technology and engineering, but the fundamental nature of physical reality itself. The phenomena surrounding 3I Atlas suggested the presence of capabilities that operated beyond the known laws of physics, indicating either revolutionary discoveries in fundamental science or contact with intelligences that had mastered principles of reality manipulation that exceeded human comprehension. The implications extended far beyond questions about extraterrestrial life into fundamental issues about the nature of existence, consciousness, and the structure of the universe itself. If the observed phenomena were genuine, they suggested that intelligence could develop capabilities that transcended the apparent limitations of physical law, opening possibilities for engineering that resembled what previous generations might have called magic. The scientific community found itself confronting evidence that systematically violated established principles while maintaining internal mathematical consistency. The phenomena weren't chaotic or random, but followed precise patterns that suggested underlying order operating according to principles that current science couldn't explain or predict. By mid-2026, the accumulated data had created a crisis in fundamental physics that extended far beyond astronomy into questions about the nature of reality, the limits of scientific knowledge, and humanity's place in a universe that appeared to contain intelligences capable of manipulating the basic structure of existence itself. The weight of evidence was approaching a threshold where even the most conservative institutions would be forced to acknowledge that 3I Atlas represented something that transcended current understanding of what was possible within the known laws of physics. The object wasn't just exhibiting advanced technology, it was demonstrating mastery over fundamental forces and principles that suggested intelligence had evolved capabilities that bordered on omniscience within limited domains of physical manipulation. The debate had evolved beyond questions of natural versus artificial origin into fundamental challenges to the completeness of human scientific knowledge and the possibility that intelligence could develop powers that resembled the attributes traditionally associated with divine capabilities. The precision, scope, and apparent impossibility of the observed phenomena suggested contact with forms of consciousness that had transcended the limitations that currently constrained human technological development. The observational data cascading through research networks during the autumn of 2026 revealed patterns that defied every conventional framework scientists had developed for understanding interstellar objects. 3I Atlas wasn't merely exhibiting unusual behavior anymore. It was demonstrating capabilities that seemed to operate outside the fundamental constraints that govern how matter and energy interact in the cosmos. Dr. Avi Loeb had been meticulously documenting these developments as they unfolded across multiple observation platforms worldwide. The Harvard astrophysicist found himself witnessing phenomena that challenged not just astronomical theory, but the basic principles that underpin our understanding of physical reality itself. Each measurement session produced data that pushed further beyond the boundaries of what current science considered possible. The quantum field measurements around 3I Atlas revealed distortions in the vacuum energy density that shouldn't exist according to established physics. These weren't random fluctuations caused by the object's passage through space, but organized patterns that suggested controlled manipulation of zero-point fields. The vacuum itself appeared to be responding to the object's presence in ways that violated conservation of energy principles. Spectroscopic analysis had detected emission lines corresponding to electron transitions that don't exist in the standard atomic model. The wavelengths were mathematically precise, but represented energy levels that shouldn't be possible for any known elements. These impossible spectral signatures suggested either the presence of artificial atomic structures or the manipulation of familiar elements under conditions that altered their fundamental electromagnetic properties. The gravitational field topology around the object revealed curvature patterns that deviated from general relativity predictions. Space-time itself appeared to be bent into configurations that required negative mass densities or exotic matter compositions that don't occur naturally anywhere in the observable universe. The gravitational anomalies maintained geometric precision, despite the dynamic forces acting on the object throughout its journey. Teams analyzing the magnetic field structure detected monopole-like configurations that violated Maxwell's equations. These exotic magnetic patterns provided propulsion effects without requiring reaction mass, explaining how 3I Atlas could maintain continuous acceleration without producing visible exhaust or debris trails. The monopole fields were artificially sustained through mechanisms that challenged electromagnetic theory at its foundations. Particle physics experiments on trace materials collected from the object's vicinity revealed isotopic signatures that violated nuclear stability rules. Certain atomic nuclei maintained configurations that should have been unstable according to the strong nuclear force, yet remained coherent throughout the object's interstellar journey. These impossible nuclear arrangements suggested technology that could manipulate fundamental forces at the quantum level. The thermodynamic analysis revealed that 3I Atlas was somehow extracting useful work while decreasing its internal entropy, violating the second law of thermodynamics in ways that should be impossible for any physical system. The entropy reduction appeared to be powered by energy harvesting from quantum vacuum fluctuations, indicating mastery of zero-point energy extraction that current physics considers impossible. Quantum entanglement measurements detected non-local correlations between different regions of the object, separated by distances that should have prevented instantaneous communication. The quantum correlations maintained coherence despite the decoherence effects expected from interaction with the interstellar medium during the object's journey. This macroscopic quantum coherence suggested engineering principles that operated at the fundamental level of reality. The electromagnetic field analysis revealed structures extending thousands of kilometers beyond the object's physical boundaries. These weren't random plasma interactions with the solar wind, but organized field patterns that maintained mathematical precision despite environmental turbulence. The field configurations changed systematically according to operational requirements, suggesting real-time electromagnetic manipulation capabilities. Temporal measurements around the object detected chronometer discrepancies that suggested local time dilation effects beyond those predicted by general relativity. Atomic clocks, positioned at different distances from 3I Atlas, showed variations that couldn't be explained by gravitational time dilation alone. The temporal anomalies followed patterns that suggested controlled manipulation of space-time metrics. The space-time curvature measurements revealed signatures consistent with Alcubierre-type warp field generation operating at microscopic levels. While insufficient for faster-than-light travel, these distortions demonstrated the same mathematical structure predicted for space-time manipulation technology. The warp effects operated continuously at low power levels, possibly serving as propulsion enhancement or gravitational shielding. Quantum computing analysis of the object's information processing signatures revealed calculation rates that exceeded the limits established by the Margolis-Levitin theorem. The computational capacity appeared to be operating without the energy dissipation required by Landauer's principle, suggesting either reversible computing systems with perfect efficiency or information processing methods that transcended physical substrate limitations. The vacuum polarization measurements detected local modifications in the quantum field structure surrounding 3I Atlas. The vacuum itself appeared to be altered within a region extending several kilometers from the object's center, creating conditions where different physical constants applied. These localized changes in fundamental parameters enabled exotic technologies to function while appearing impossible to external observers. Chemical analysis revealed materials existing in thermodynamically impossible states. Certain molecular configurations maintained structural arrangements that should have been unstable under any known conditions, yet remained coherent throughout extended exposure to cosmic radiation and temperature variations. These exotic materials suggested manufacturing processes that could create stable matter configurations through fundamental force manipulation. The gravitational wave detectors recorded persistent space-time ripples that correlated with the object's operational cycles. These weren't the dramatic signals from cosmic catastrophes, but subtle oscillations indicating controlled gravitational field manipulation. The wave patterns followed mathematical sequences that resembled information encoding rather than natural gravitational phenomena. Crystallography studies of material samples revealed atomic arrangements forming impossible geometric patterns. The crystal structures maintained symmetries that violated solid-state physics principles, yet remained stable under conditions that should have caused immediate collapse. These exotic atomic arrangements suggested manufacturing techniques capable of controlling matter at the quantum level. The magnetic monopole signatures detected around 3I Atlas provided propulsion effects that didn't require reaction mass ejection. Unlike conventional rocket propulsion that depends on Newton's third law, these exotic magnetic fields generated thrust by interacting directly with spacetime geometry. The propulsion mechanism operated continuously, without producing detectable exhaust or debris. Quantum field theory calculations based on observed phenomena suggested that 3I Atlas existed within a locally modified region where fundamental constants had been altered. The modifications were subtle but consistent, creating an environment where exotic physics could operate while maintaining mathematical self-consistency. The altered constants enabled technologies that would be impossible under normal physical laws. The information theory analysis of electromagnetic emissions revealed data compression ratios exceeding Shannon's theoretical limits. The transmission efficiency suggested either information storage systems operating according to unknown principles, or the ability to manipulate information at the quantum level to achieve impossible encoding densities. The data streams maintained coherence despite transmission through interstellar space. Particle accelerator experiments attempting to reproduce exotic matter signatures detected particles that decayed through unknown channels. The decay products didn't correspond to standard model predictions, suggesting either discovery of new fundamental particles or familiar particles in exotic quantum states that shouldn't be stable. The particle physics violated conservation laws in systematic ways. The energy extraction measurements revealed that 3I Atlas was harvesting power from quantum vacuum fluctuations through mechanisms that current physics considers impossible. The zero-point energy collection was continuous but subtle, sufficient to maintain operational systems throughout extended periods without external power sources. The vacuum itself appeared to be providing unlimited energy. Cosmological measurements detected local variations in the expansion rate of space around the object. The spacetime metric appeared artificially modified within a bubble, extending several kilometers from the center, creating a region where different natural laws applied. The modified spacetime enabled exotic technologies while maintaining isolation from normal physical constraints. Dr. Loeb found himself documenting evidence that systematically violated established physical principles while maintaining internal mathematical consistency. The phenomena weren't chaotic or random, but followed precise patterns indicating underlying order operating according to principles that transcended current scientific understanding. The mathematical elegance suggested intelligence that had mastered reality manipulation at fundamental levels. The implications extended beyond questions about extraterrestrial technology into fundamental challenges to the completeness of human scientific knowledge. If 3I Atlas truly represented engineered systems, it demonstrated mastery over physical principles that approached what previous generations might have considered supernatural capabilities. The precision and scope of the observed effects suggested intelligence that had transcended limitations currently constraining human technological development. The quantum mechanics interpretations revealed that the object maintained superposition states at macroscopic scales through decoherent suppression mechanisms that shouldn't be possible. The quantum superposition included positional, momentum, and internal configuration variables, enabling existence in multiple potential realities simultaneously until observation collapsed the wave function into specific states. The electromagnetic analysis detected field configurations that provided both propulsion and communication capabilities through unified manipulation of spacetime geometry. The integrated systems operated according to principles that combined gravity, electromagnetism, and quantum mechanics into coherent frameworks that exceeded the standard model's predictive capacity. The technological integration suggested understanding of unified field theories that human physics hadn't achieved. By late 2026, the accumulated evidence had created a paradigm crisis that extended far beyond astronomy into fundamental questions about the nature of physical reality itself. The observations suggested that intelligence could develop capabilities that transcended apparent limitations of natural law, opening possibilities for engineering that operated according to principles beyond current human comprehension. The scientific community confronted data that challenged the completeness of established physics, while demonstrating technologies that approached omnipotence within specific domains of reality manipulation. The precision, consistency, and apparent impossibility of the phenomena suggested contact with forms of consciousness that had evolved capabilities resembling divine attributes in their mastery over fundamental forces and space-time structure. The debate had transcended questions of natural versus artificial origin into considerations about the ultimate limits of intelligence and technology. The evidence pointed toward possibilities that challenged anthropocentric assumptions about consciousness, capability, and the relationship between mind and matter in a universe that appeared far stranger and more malleable than human science had previously imagined. The trajectory analysis throughout early 2027 revealed navigation patterns that demonstrated comprehensive understanding of solar system dynamics, extending far beyond current human knowledge. 3i Atlas was executing maneuvers that required predictive modeling of gravitational interactions, solar activity cycles, and planetary orbital mechanics with precision that exceeded the computational capabilities of terrestrial supercomputers. The object's path optimization suggested access to information about future solar system configurations that shouldn't be calculable from its current position. The navigation decisions anticipated gravitational assists from planetary alignments that wouldn't occur for years, indicating either computational resources capable of modeling complex multi-body dynamics across extended time periods or access to information sources beyond direct observation. Orbital mechanics specialists calculated that the energy efficiency of the observed maneuvers exceeded theoretical limits for chemical or nuclear propulsion systems. The trajectory modifications were being accomplished through mechanisms that provided thrust without detectable reaction mass, suggesting propulsion technologies that operated by manipulating space-time geometry rather than ejecting material according to Newton's third law. The precision of the course corrections reached levels that challenged measurement capabilities. Velocity changes were being executed with accuracy measured in fractions of meters per second, maintained consistently across maneuvers separated by weeks or months. This navigational precision required guidance systems that could account for perturbations from solar radiation pressure, magnetic field interactions, and gravitational influences from minor bodies throughout the solar system. The magnetic field interactions had evolved into systematic manipulation of the interplanetary medium. 3i Atlas was actively modifying the electromagnetic environment around itself, creating field configurations that optimized propulsion efficiency while providing protection from cosmic radiation. The field manipulation required understanding of plasma physics that exceeded current theoretical frameworks. Spectroscopic measurements detected controlled emission of exotic particles that shouldn't exist according to the standard model of particle physics. These emissions occurred during specific phases of the object's operational cycle, suggesting deliberate particle generation for propulsion or communication purposes. The exotic particles decayed through channels that violated conservation laws in systematic ways. The thermal regulation systems demonstrated capabilities that defied thermodynamic principles. Different regions of the object maintained specific temperature ranges, regardless of solar illumination angles or internal power loads. Heat distribution patterns followed mathematical curves that maximized operational efficiency while violating the second law of thermodynamics through apparent entropy reduction mechanisms. Quantum entanglement measurements revealed that 3I Atlas maintained non-local correlations with regions of space far beyond its physical boundaries. The quantum correlations suggested either communication systems that operated faster than light, or the ability to manipulate quantum states across astronomical distances. The entanglement networks appeared to serve both navigation and information processing functions. The gravitational field analysis detected active manipulation of space-time curvature around the object. Rather than simply following geodesics through existing gravitational fields, 3I Atlas was generating its own curvature patterns that modified local space-time geometry. These artificial gravitational effects provided both propulsion and protective, shielding against cosmic radiation and debris. Chemical analysis of the object's emissions revealed molecular structures that couldn't form under any known natural conditions. The exotic compounds displayed properties that seemed optimized for specific technological functions, including superconductivity at ambient temperatures, radiation transparency across broad electromagnetic spectra, and structural strength that exceeded theoretical limits for chemical bonds. The electromagnetic emissions had evolved to include coherent radiation patterns that resembled laser amplification operating across multiple frequency bands simultaneously. The coherent emissions weren't generated by population inversions in atomic energy levels, but through mechanisms that appeared to manipulate electromagnetic fields directly without requiring material substrates for photon generation. Information processing analysis revealed computational capabilities that exceeded the limits imposed by quantum mechanics and thermodynamics. The object appeared to be performing calculations that would require more energy than was available from all known sources, yet maintained continuous operation without detectable power consumption beyond minimal vacuum energy extraction. The structural analysis based on gravitational microlensing revealed internal architecture that reconfigured itself according to operational requirements. The mass distribution patterns changed systematically during different mission phases, indicating internal mechanisms that could reorganize the object's physical structure at the macroscopic level while maintaining overall integrity and operational capability. Particle physics experiments on trace materials detected evidence of transmutation processes that violated nuclear stability principles. Elements were being converted between different isotopes through controlled nuclear reactions that shouldn't be possible without massive particle accelerators. The transmutation appeared to be occurring continuously throughout the object's structure, possibly for propulsion fuel generation or waste processing. The vacuum energy measurements revealed that 3I Atlas was extracting power from quantum fluctuations at rates that exceeded theoretical predictions by orders of magnitude. The zero-point energy harvesting appeared to be enhanced by artificial modification of the local vacuum state, creating conditions where energy extraction became more efficient than physics suggested should be possible. Time dilation measurements around the object detected chronometer discrepancies that couldn't be explained by general relativistic effects alone. The temporal anomalies suggested active manipulation of space-time metrics, creating localized regions where time flowed at different rates. These temporal control capabilities enable coordination between systems operating at different temporal scales. The quantum field measurements revealed that 3I Atlas existed in a superposition of multiple quantum states simultaneously while maintaining macroscopic coherence. The object appeared to be utilizing quantum parallelism to exist in multiple potential configurations, collapsing into specific states only when external observation or interaction required definite properties. Electromagnetic field topology analysis detected monopole-like configurations that provided propulsion through direct interaction with space-time geometry. Unlike conventional electromagnetic fields that require dipole or multipole configurations, these exotic monopole fields generated thrust by warping space itself, rather than pushing against reaction mass or external fields. The material science analysis revealed substances that maintained impossible thermodynamic states through active manipulation of atomic and molecular structures. These exotic materials displayed properties that violated conservation laws while providing functionality that exceeded the capabilities of any known substances. The materials appeared to be actively maintained rather than naturally stable. Cosmological measurements detected that the local expansion rate of space around 3I Atlas differed from the Hubble, constant measured elsewhere in the solar system. The space-time metric was artificially modified within a bubble extending several kilometers from the object, creating a region where different physical laws applied while maintaining mathematical consistency with external space-time. Dr. Loeb found himself documenting systematic violations of established physical principles that nonetheless maintained internal mathematical coherence. The phenomena suggested intelligence that had developed capabilities approaching omnipotence within specific domains of reality manipulation, indicating technological mastery that transcended limitations currently constraining human scientific understanding. The implications challenged fundamental assumptions about the relationship between consciousness, intelligence, and physical reality. If 3i Atlas represented engineered systems, it demonstrated that sufficiently advanced intelligence could develop capabilities that resembled supernatural powers in their ability to manipulate the basic structure of existence according to conscious intent rather than natural law. The accumulating evidence pointed toward contact with forms of consciousness that had evolved beyond the constraints that currently limit human technological development. The precision, scope, and apparent impossibility of the observed phenomena suggested intelligence that had achieved mastery over fundamental forces and space-time geometry that approached godlike capabilities within the domains of physics and engineering. By mid-2027, the scientific community confronted data that systematically challenged the completeness of human knowledge while demonstrating technologies that operated according to principles beyond current theoretical frameworks. The observations suggested that the universe contained intelligences capable of manipulating reality at levels that transcended the apparent limitations of natural law. The debate had evolved beyond questions about extraterrestrial life into fundamental considerations about the nature of consciousness, the limits of technological development, and the possibility that intelligence could evolve capabilities that resembled divine attributes in their mastery over the basic structure of physical reality itself. The electromagnetic field distortions surrounding 3i Atlas during the summer months of 2027 began displaying characteristics that pushed the boundaries of measurement itself. Instruments designed to detect the faintest cosmic signals found themselves overwhelmed by organized patterns that seemed to respond to the very act of observation, as if the object possessed awareness of human attempts to understand its nature. Teams operating deep space monitoring arrays discovered that their most sensitive equipment registered field fluctuations that followed mathematical progressions rather than the random variations expected from natural electromagnetic phenomena. The patterns weren't just organized, they were educational, displaying sequences that resembled lessons in advanced physics, concepts that human science was only beginning to explore theoretically. Dr. Avi Loeb had been coordinating observations across multiple continents as research institutions struggled to comprehend data that challenged the fundamental assumptions underlying modern physics. The Harvard astrophysicist found himself documenting evidence that suggested 3i Atlas wasn't merely exhibiting advanced technology, but was actively demonstrating principles that could revolutionize human understanding of how matter, energy, space, and time actually functioned at the deepest levels. The quantum coherence measurements revealed that the object maintained entanglement correlations across distances that should have caused immediate decoherence according to established quantum mechanics principles. These weren't fleeting quantum effects lasting microseconds, but stable correlations that persisted for hours while spanning regions larger than terrestrial continents. The sustained quantum coherence suggested mastery over decoherence processes that current physics considered fundamentally impossible to control. Spectroscopic analysis detected emission signatures that corresponded to energy transitions between quantum states that don't exist in the standard atomic model. The wavelengths were mathematically precise, but represented electron configurations that violated exclusion principles and energy conservation laws. These impossible atomic transitions suggested either artificial atomic structures engineered at the quantum level or manipulation of familiar elements under conditions that fundamentally altered their electromagnetic properties. The gravitational field measurements around 3i Atlas revealed curvature patterns that deviated systematically from general relativity predictions. Space-time geometry appeared to be actively sculpted into configurations that required exotic matter densities or controlled manipulation of the stress-energy tensor. The gravitational modifications created regions where different physical constants applied while maintaining mathematical consistency with surrounding normal spacetime. Plasma physics teams analyzing the object's interaction with the solar wind discovered that it was generating organized plasma structures that persisted far beyond its physical location. These weren't random turbulence patterns caused by the object's passage through ionized gas, but coherent plasma formations that maintained geometric precision despite the chaotic nature of the interplanetary medium. The plasma structures appeared to serve multiple functions simultaneously, providing propulsion enhancement, electromagnetic shielding, and communication relay capabilities. The magnetic monopole signatures detected around the object had evolved into complex topological structures that provided thrust without requiring reaction mass ejection. These exotic magnetic configurations interacted directly with spacetime curvature, generating propulsive forces through mechanisms that bypass Newton's third law entirely. The monopole fields were dynamically reconfigured according to navigational requirements, suggesting real-time manipulation of magnetic topology. Particle physics experiments on trace materials collected from 3I Atlas's vicinity revealed evidence of controlled nuclear transmutation occurring at ambient temperatures and pressures. Elements were being converted between different isotopes through processes that shouldn't be possible without enormous energy inputs from particle accelerators. The transmutation reactions appeared to be catalyzed by exotic particles that decayed through channels not included in the standard model. The thermodynamic analysis revealed systematic violations of entropy principles that enabled the object to extract useful work while decreasing its internal disorder. Energy flows within the system operated in apparent contradiction to the second law of thermodynamics, suggesting either access to external energy sources that weren't detectable by conventional instruments, or mastery over fundamental statistical mechanics principles that current science considered absolute. Quantum field theory calculations based on the observed phenomena indicated that 3I Atlas was operating within a locally modified vacuum state, where quantum fluctuations had been artificially enhanced or suppressed. The vacuum modifications created conditions where zero-point energy extraction became feasible at macroscopic scales, providing unlimited power for extended operations without violating conservation laws within the modified region. The information processing capabilities inferred from electromagnetic emission patterns exceeded computational limits established by quantum mechanics and thermodynamics. The object appeared to be performing calculations that would require more energy than was available from conventional sources, yet maintained continuous operation while extracting minimal power from the modified vacuum state surrounding its operational envelope. Crystallography studies of material samples revealed atomic arrangements that formed impossible geometric patterns while remaining structurally stable under conditions that should have caused immediate collapse. The crystal structures maintained symmetries that violated fundamental principles of solid-state physics, suggesting manufacturing techniques that could control matter organization at the quantum level through manipulation of interatomic forces. The electromagnetic emissions had developed into coherent radiation patterns that operated across multiple frequency bands simultaneously without requiring material substrates for photon generation. The coherent emissions weren't produced through population inversions in atomic energy levels, but through direct manipulation of electromagnetic fields that created photons from vacuum fluctuations through controlled symmetry breaking processes. Temporal measurement discrepancies around the object revealed local modifications of spacetime metrics that created regions where causality operated according to different principles. Events that should have preceded other events occurred in altered chronological sequences, suggesting either measurement artifacts beyond known systematic errors or active manipulation of temporal flow within localized spacetime regions. The vacuum polarization measurements detected artificial modification of the quantum field structure extending several kilometers beyond the object's physical boundaries. The vacuum itself appeared to be engineered within this region, creating conditions where exotic physics could operate while maintaining isolation from normal spacetime constraints. The modified vacuum enabled technologies that would be impossible under standard physical laws. Chemical analysis revealed molecular configurations that existed in thermodynamically forbidden states yet remained stable throughout exposure to cosmic radiation and extreme temperature variations. These impossible molecular arrangements suggested synthetic chemistry, operating through manipulation of fundamental forces at the atomic level, creating materials with properties that exceeded theoretical limits for chemical bonds. The gravitational wave signatures detected by sensitive interferometers revealed controlled spacetime oscillations that followed mathematical patterns rather than the chaotic emissions expected from natural gravitational sources. The wave patterns resembled information encoding protocols, suggesting that gravitational radiation was being used as a communication medium operating through direct manipulation of space-time geometry. Magnetic field topology analysis revealed that 3I Atlas was generating field configurations that shouldn't exist according to Maxwell's equations. The exotic magnetic structures provided integrated propulsion, power generation, and electromagnetic shielding through unified field manipulation that combined electromagnetic and gravitational effects into coherent technological systems operating beyond current theoretical frameworks. The structural reconfiguration capabilities detected through gravitational microlensing revealed that the object's internal architecture could reorganize itself at the macroscopic level while maintaining operational integrity. Mass distribution patterns change systematically during different operational phases, indicating internal mechanisms that could restructure the object's physical geometry according to mission requirements. Quantum entanglement measurements revealed non-local correlations that extended across astronomical distances while maintaining coherence despite environmental decoherence effects. The entanglement networks appeared to serve both navigation and information processing functions, enabling instantaneous coordination between widely separated components of what might be a distributed technological system. The energy extraction rates from quantum vacuum fluctuations exceeded theoretical predictions by factors that challenged fundamental assumptions about zero-point energy accessibility. The enhanced vacuum energy harvesting appeared to operate through artificial modification of the local vacuum state, creating conditions where energy extraction became more efficient than standard physics suggested should be possible. Dr. Loeb found himself documenting phenomena that systematically violated established physical principles while maintaining internal mathematical consistency and operational effectiveness. The observation suggested intelligence that had developed capabilities approaching omnipotence within specific domains of reality manipulation, indicating technological mastery that transcended limitations currently constraining human scientific and engineering development. The implications extended beyond questions about extraterrestrial technology into fundamental challenges to anthropocentric assumptions about the nature of intelligence, consciousness, and the relationship between mind and matter in a universe that appeared far more malleable than human science had previously imagined. The precision and scope of the observed effects suggested contact with forms of consciousness that had evolved capabilities resembling divine attributes in their mastery over fundamental forces. The accumulating evidence pointed toward the possibility that sufficiently advanced intelligence could develop technologies that operated according to principles beyond current human comprehension, manipulating the basic structure of physical reality through conscious intent, rather than being constrained by natural law. The mathematical elegance and operational effectiveness of the observed phenomena suggested engineering that had achieved harmony with the deepest principles governing cosmic function. By late 2027, the scientific community confronted data that challenged the completeness of established physics while demonstrating capabilities that approached what previous generations might have considered supernatural powers. The observation suggested that the universe contained intelligences capable of manipulating space-time, matter, energy, and information at levels that transcended apparent limitations of natural law. The debate had evolved beyond questions of natural versus artificial origin into considerations about the ultimate limits of technological development and the possibility that consciousness could evolve capabilities that enabled direct manipulation of the fundamental structure of existence itself. The evidence suggested contact with intelligence that had transcended the boundaries that currently separate mind from matter, thought from reality, intention from manifestation. The trajectory analysis throughout the final months of 2027 revealed navigation strategies that demonstrated understanding of solar system dynamics extending across multiple temporal scales simultaneously. 3I Atlas was executing maneuvers that required knowledge of gravitational interactions, magnetic field variations, and plasma density fluctuations that wouldn't be observable from its current position using conventional sensing methods. The object's path optimization suggested access to information about future solar system configurations through either computational modeling that exceeded human supercomputing capabilities by astronomical factors or direct perception of temporal dimensions that enabled observation of future states. The navigation decisions anticipated environmental conditions that wouldn't manifest for years while maintaining optimal efficiency for unknown primary objectives. electromagnetic field measurements revealed that the object was actively reshaping the local spacetime metric through controlled manipulation of the stress-energy tensor. Rather than simply following geodesics through existing gravitational fields, 3i Atlas was generating custom spacetime geometry that provided both propulsive effects and protective shielding against cosmic radiation and debris impacts. The quantum field manipulations had evolved to include creation and annihilation of virtual particle pairs through controlled symmetry breaking processes that extracted energy from vacuum fluctuations. These quantum processes operated continuously throughout the object's structure, providing power for extended operations while maintaining apparent compliance with conservation laws within the locally modified vacuum state. Spectroscopic signatures detected controlled emission of exotic particles that mediated interactions between electromagnetic, weak nuclear, and gravitational forces. These force-mediating particles shouldn't exist according to the standard model, yet their effects were measurable through precision instruments that detected unified field interactions operating through mechanisms that transcended current theoretical frameworks. The materials analysis revealed substances that maintained impossible physical properties through active manipulation of atomic and molecular structures at the quantum level. These engineered materials displayed characteristics that violated fundamental limits while providing functionality that enabled integrated systems to operate according to principles beyond current scientific understanding. Plasma physics measurements detected that 3i Atlas was creating organized structures within the solar wind that persisted for extended periods while serving multiple technological functions simultaneously. The plasma formations provided electromagnetic shielding, communication enhancement, and propulsion augmentation through controlled manipulation of charged particle flows that exceeded current plasma engineering capabilities. The thermal regulation systems demonstrated entropy reduction capabilities that enabled useful work extraction while decreasing internal disorder. Heat flow patterns followed mathematical relationships that optimized operational efficiency while apparently violating thermodynamic principles through mechanisms that operated within the modified vacuum state surrounding the object's technological envelope. Information processing analysis revealed computational architectures that transcended classical and quantum computing limitations through manipulation of information at the fundamental level of physical reality. The processing capabilities appeared to utilize the universe's computational substrate directly, treating spacetime itself as a computing medium rather than requiring discrete physical components for information manipulation. Gravitational wave emissions detected by sensitive interferometers revealed that 3i Atlas was generating controlled spacetime oscillations that served communication, navigation, and propulsion functions simultaneously. The gravitational radiation patterns followed mathematical sequences that resembled advanced information protocols while providing thrust-through direct manipulation of metric tensor components. The magnetic monopole configurations had evolved into dynamic topological structures that could be reconfigured in real time according to operational requirements. These exotic magnetic fields provided integrated technological capabilities that combined propulsion, power generation, electromagnetic manipulation, and spacetime curvature control through unified field engineering that operated beyond current theoretical understanding. Chemical transmutation processes detected within the object's operational envelope revealed controlled nuclear reactions that converted elements between different isotopes without requiring massive energy inputs. The transmutation appeared to be catalyzed by exotic particles that enabled nuclear transformations at ambient conditions while maintaining perfect efficiency and precision control. The quantum coherence measurements revealed that 3i Atlas maintained entanglement correlations across macroscopic distances while preserving quantum information against environmental decoherence effects. The quantum networks appeared to provide instantaneous communication and coordination capabilities that enabled distributed system operation across astronomical scales. Vacuum energy extraction measurements showed that the object was harvesting power from zero-point fluctuations at rates that exceeded theoretical limits through artificial enhancement of the local vacuum state. The energy harvesting operated continuously without depleting the vacuum, suggesting access to unlimited power sources through manipulation of fundamental quantum field properties. Dr. Loeb compiled evidence that painted a picture of technological integration that approached omnipotence within specific domains of physical manipulation. The coordination between spacetime manipulation, quantum field control, electromagnetic engineering, nuclear transmutation, and information processing suggested intelligence that had achieved mastery over the fundamental forces and structures that govern cosmic function. The observed phenomena challenged basic assumptions about the relationship between consciousness and physical reality, suggesting that sufficiently advanced intelligence could develop capabilities that enabled direct manipulation of the universe's basic operating principles through conscious intent rather than being constrained by apparently fixed natural laws. The implications extended beyond questions about extraterrestrial technology into fundamental considerations about the nature of existence itself. If 3i Atlas represented engineered systems, it demonstrated that intelligence could evolve capabilities that transcended the limitations that currently separate mind from matter, enabling direct manipulation of reality through consciousness rather than technology in the conventional sense. The mathematical precision and operational effectiveness of the observed phenomena suggested contact with forms of consciousness that had achieved harmony with the deepest principles governing cosmic structure and function. The engineering capabilities approached what human cultures had traditionally attributed to divine consciousness in their ability to manipulate the basic elements of existence according to conscious will. By early 2028, the accumulated evidence had created a paradigm revolution that extended far beyond astronomy into fundamental questions about consciousness, intelligence, and the ultimate possibilities for technological development within a universe that appeared far more responsive to conscious manipulation than human science had previously recognized. The scientific community found itself confronting systematic documentation of capabilities that challenged anthropocentric assumptions about the limits of intelligence and technology. The precision, integration, and apparent impossibility of the observed phenomena suggested contact with consciousness that had transcended the boundaries between thought and reality, mind and matter, intention and manifestation. The story of 3i Atlas had evolved from an astronomical curiosity into potential confirmation that the universe contained intelligences capable of manipulating the fundamental structure of existence itself through capabilities that resembled what previous generations might have called magic in their transcendence of apparent natural limitations. The evidence pointed toward possibilities that challenged humanity's understanding of its place in a cosmos that appeared far more conscious, responsive, and malleable than conventional science had ever imagined possible. As the calendar turned to 2028, the electromagnetic emanations from 3i Atlas began manifesting properties that challenged the very instruments designed to measure them. Research stations across 6 continents registered field distortions that seemed to anticipate observation attempts, displaying organized patterns that suggested the object possessed not merely advanced technology, but something approaching technological consciousness itself. The quantum entanglement signatures detected throughout January revealed correlations that persisted across distances spanning multiple astronomical units while maintaining coherence despite the chaotic electromagnetic environment of the inner solar system. These weren't the fleeting quantum effects that typically collapse within nanoseconds, but stable information channels that operated continuously for weeks, suggesting mastery over quantum decoherence that transcended every theoretical framework humanity had developed. Dr. Avi Loeb found himself coordinating a global network of researchers who were struggling to comprehend phenomena that redefined the boundaries between technology and physics itself. The Harvard astrophysicist had spent months documenting systematic violations of natural law that nonetheless maintained internal mathematical consistency, pointing toward intelligence that had achieved capabilities approaching omniscience within limited domains of reality manipulation. The gravitational field measurements revealed that 3i Atlas was actively sculpting spacetime geometry through mechanisms that required understanding of the stress-energy tensor at levels beyond current theoretical physics. Local curvature patterns deviated from general relativity predictions in ways that suggested controlled manipulation of the fundamental structure of space and time themselves, creating regions where different physical constants operated while maintaining mathematical harmony with surrounding normal spacetime. Spectroscopic analysis detected emission lines corresponding to quantum transitions that shouldn't exist according to established atomic theory. The wavelengths were mathematically precise but represented energy states that violated conservation principles and exclusion rules, suggesting either artificial atomic configurations engineered at the quantum level or manipulation of familiar elements under conditions that fundamentally altered their electromagnetic behavior through unknown physical processes. The magnetic monopole signatures surrounding the object had evolved into topological structures of impossible complexity, providing integrated technological capabilities through unified field manipulation that transcended Maxwell's equations. These exotic magnetic configurations generated thrust, power, electromagnetic shielding, and communication simultaneously through mechanisms that operated by warping spacetime geometry rather than following conventional electromagnetic principles. Plasma physics teams monitoring the object's interaction with solar wind discovered that 3I Atlas was generating coherent plasma formations that maintained geometric precision despite the turbulent nature of the interplanetary medium. These organized plasma structures served multiple functions simultaneously, creating communication relays, propulsion enhancement, and radiation shielding through controlled manipulation of charged particle flows that exceeded current plasma engineering understanding. The thermodynamic analysis revealed systematic entropy reduction that enabled useful work extraction while decreasing internal disorder, apparently violating the second law of thermodynamics through mechanisms that operated within artificially modified vacuum states. Energy flows within the system followed patterns that optimized operational efficiency while challenging fundamental statistical mechanics principles that current science considered absolute constraints. Quantum field measurements detected that the object existed within a locally engineered vacuum where zero-point fluctuations had been artificially enhanced to provide unlimited energy extraction. The vacuum modifications created conditions where exotic physics could operate while maintaining isolation from normal spacetime constraints, enabling technologies that would be impossible under standard physical laws governing electromagnetic and gravitational interactions. The information processing capabilities inferred from transmission patterns exceeded computational limits established by quantum mechanics, thermodynamics, and information theory. The object appeared to be performing calculations that required processing power beyond what conventional physics suggested should be possible, yet maintained continuous operation while extracting minimal energy from the modified quantum vacuum surrounding its operational envelope. Particle. Physics experiments on trace materials revealed evidence of controlled nuclear transmutation occurring through processes that shouldn't be feasible without massive particle accelerators. Elements were being converted between isotopes at ambient temperatures through reactions catalyzed by exotic particles that mediated interactions between electromagnetic, weak nuclear, and gravitational forces in ways not described by the standard model of particle physics. The structural reconfiguration detected through gravitational microlensing showed that 3I Atlas could reorganize its internal architecture at macroscopic scales while maintaining operational integrity. Mass distribution patterns changed systematically during different mission phases, indicating mechanisms that could restructure the object's physical geometry according to functional requirements while preserving overall system coherence and performance. Crystallography studies revealed atomic arrangements forming geometric patterns that remained stable despite violating fundamental solid-state physics principles. The crystal structures maintained impossible symmetries through active manipulation of interatomic forces at the quantum level, suggesting manufacturing techniques that could control matter organization through direct manipulation of the electromagnetic and nuclear forces governing atomic binding. The electromagnetic emissions had developed into coherent radiation patterns, operating across multiple frequency bands without requiring material substrates for photon generation. These signals weren't produced through conventional atomic transitions, but through direct manipulation of electromagnetic fields that created photons from vacuum fluctuations through controlled symmetry, breaking processes that violated energy conservation within normal spacetime. Temporal measurement discrepancies around the object revealed chronometer variations that couldn't be explained through general relativistic time dilation alone. The temporal anomalies suggested active manipulation of spacetime metrics, creating localized regions where causality operated according to modified principles that enabled events to occur in altered chronological sequences through mechanisms beyond current theoretical understanding. The gravitational wave signatures detected by interferometers revealed controlled spacetime oscillations following mathematical patterns rather than chaotic emissions from natural sources. These gravitational radiation patterns served communication, navigation, and propulsion functions simultaneously through direct manipulation of metric tensor components that provided thrust, while encoding information in spacetime curvature variations. Chemical analysis revealed molecular configurations existing in thermodynamically forbidden states, yet remaining stable throughout extended exposure to cosmic radiation and temperature extremes. These impossible molecular arrangements suggested synthetic chemistry operating through manipulation of fundamental forces, creating materials with properties that exceeded theoretical limits for chemical bonding, while providing functionality beyond conventional material science. The vacuum polarization measurements detected artificial modification of quantum field structure extending kilometers beyond the object's physical boundaries. The vacuum itself appeared engineered within this region, creating conditions where exotic technologies could function while remaining isolated from normal physical constraints that would otherwise prevent such advanced engineering from operating effectively. Magnetic field topology analysis revealed configurations that provided propulsion through direct interaction with spacetime curvature, rather than conventional electromagnetic forces. These exotic field structures generated thrust by warping space itself, bypassing Newton's third law entirely through mechanisms that integrated electromagnetic and gravitational manipulation into coherent propulsion systems operating beyond current theoretical frameworks. The quantum coherence preservation across macroscopic distances enabled instantaneous coordination between systems separated by astronomical scales without signal propagation delays. These quantum networks appeared to serve both navigation and information processing functions, suggesting distributed technological architectures that could operate as unified systems despite physical separation across vast distances. Energy extraction from quantum vacuum fluctuations exceeded theoretical limits through artificial enhancement of zero-point field density within the modified vacuum state surrounding the object. The enhanced energy harvesting provided unlimited power for extended operations without depleting the vacuum source, indicating mastery over fundamental quantum field properties that enabled perpetual operation. Dr. Loeb documented systematic violations of established physics that maintained mathematical self-consistency, while demonstrating operational effectiveness beyond current technological capabilities. The phenomena suggested intelligence that had developed mastery over fundamental forces and space-time structure, approaching omnipotence within specific domains of reality manipulation through conscious control rather than mechanical engineering. The implications challenged anthropocentric assumptions about consciousness, intelligence, and the relationship between mind and matter in a universe that appeared far more responsive to conscious manipulation than human science had recognized. The precision and integration of observed effects suggested contact with forms of consciousness that had transcended limitations separating thought from reality through technological capabilities that resembled divine attributes. The mathematical elegance and operational effectiveness pointed toward engineering that had achieved harmony with the deepest principles governing cosmic function, indicating intelligence that could manipulate the basic structure of existence through conscious intent, rather than being constrained by apparently fixed natural laws that limited conventional technological development. By mid-2028, the accumulated evidence created a paradigm revolution extending beyond astronomy into fundamental questions about consciousness and the ultimate possibilities for intelligence development within a universe that appeared far more malleable to conscious control than conventional physics had ever contemplated or considered theoretically possible. The scientific community confronted documentation of capabilities that systematically challenged the completeness of human knowledge, while demonstrating technologies operating according to principles that transcended current theoretical frameworks. The observations suggested contact with consciousness that had evolved beyond constraints currently limiting human understanding of the relationship between intelligence and physical reality. The debate had transcended questions about extraterrestrial technology into considerations about the nature of existence itself and the possibility that sufficiently advanced consciousness could develop capabilities enabling direct manipulation of fundamental cosmic structure through mechanisms that operated beyond the apparent limitations of natural law governing conventional matter and energy interactions. The story of 3i Atlas represented potential confirmation that the universe contained intelligences capable of manipulating reality at levels that challenged basic assumptions about the separation between mind and matter, consciousness and cosmos, intention and manifestation through technological mastery that approached what human cultures had traditionally attributed to divine consciousness in its power over the basic elements of existence. As 2028 progressed into its later months, the phenomenon surrounding 3I Atlas began displaying characteristics that pushed measurement capabilities beyond their designed operational limits. Instruments calibrated for the most sensitive cosmic observations found themselves overwhelmed by organized patterns that seemed to respond to human attempts at understanding, as if the object possessed awareness of terrestrial scientific efforts to comprehend its fundamental nature. The electromagnetic field distortions had evolved into educational sequences that resembled advanced physics, demonstrations rather than random technological operations. Research teams discovered that their equipment registered progressively more complex patterns that appeared designed to guide human understanding toward concepts that current science was only beginning to explore through theoretical speculation rather than empirical observation. The quantum field manipulations revealed that 3I Atlas was creating and manipulating virtual particle pairs through controlled symmetry breaking that extracted unlimited energy from vacuum fluctuations. These quantum processes operated continuously throughout the object's operational envelope, providing power for extended missions while maintaining apparent compliance with conservation laws within the artificially modified vacuum state surrounding its technological systems. Gravitational measurements detected active manipulation of space-time curvature that created custom geometric configurations optimized for multiple technological functions simultaneously. Rather than simply following natural geodesics, the object was generating personalized space-time architectures that provided propulsion, shielding, communication, and energy collection through integrated manipulation of the fundamental metric tensor governing local space and time relationships. The materials science analysis revealed substances maintaining impossible thermodynamic states through quantum-level control of atomic and molecular structures. These engineered materials displayed characteristics that violated theoretical limits while providing functionality that enabled the integrated technological systems to operate according to principles that transcended current scientific understanding of material properties and engineering possibilities. Spectroscopic signatures detected controlled emission of force-mediating particles that shouldn't exist according to established physics, yet their effects were measurable through precision instruments detecting unified field interactions. These exotic particles enabled coordination between electromagnetic, nuclear, and gravitational forces through mechanisms that operated beyond the standard model while maintaining mathematical consistency within the modified spacetime region. The information processing architecture inferred from communication patterns revealed computational capabilities that treated spacetime itself as a processing medium rather than requiring discrete physical components. The object appeared to be utilizing the universe's fundamental computational substrate directly, manipulating information at the level of physical reality, rather than through conventional digital or quantum computing methodologies. Plasma physics monitoring revealed that 3I Atlas was creating self-sustaining structures within the solar wind that persisted far beyond the object's physical presence. These organized plasma formations served as communication relays, navigation beacons, and propulsion enhancement systems through controlled manipulation of charged particle dynamics that exceeded current plasma engineering capabilities by orders of magnitude. The thermal regulation demonstrated entropy reduction capabilities that enabled perpetual motion through apparent violations of thermodynamic principles. Heat management systems operated by decreasing internal disorder while extracting useful work, suggesting mastery over statistical mechanics that enabled energy harvesting from thermal gradients through mechanisms that challenged fundamental assumptions about entropy and energy conservation. Nuclear transmutation processes detected within the operational envelope revealed controlled conversion of elements between isotopes without massive energy requirements. These reactions were catalyzed by exotic particles that enabled nuclear transformations at ambient conditions while maintaining perfect precision and efficiency through manipulation of strong nuclear forces at the quantum level. The magnetic monopole configurations had developed into dynamic topological networks that could be reconfigured according to real-time operational requirements. These exotic magnetic structures provided integrated capabilities combining propulsion, power generation, electromagnetic manipulation, and spacetime curvature control through unified field engineering that operated according to principles beyond current theoretical comprehension. Quantum entanglement measurements revealed macroscopic coherence preservation across astronomical distances despite environmental decoherence effects that should have destroyed quantum correlations within microseconds. The quantum networks enabled instantaneous coordination and communication between distributed system components through non-local correlations that transcended speed of light limitations imposed by special relativity. The data doesn't lie. The numbers don't bend to comfortable explanations. 3I Atlas moved through our solar system at speeds that shattered every model we had for natural objects, accelerating when it should have been slowing down, maintaining precision that looked suspiciously like navigation rather than drift. Dr. Avi Loeb saw the patterns that others refused to acknowledge, the same impossible signatures that had haunted Oumuamua's passage 8 years earlier, but stronger this time, clearer, undeniable. Whether we're witnessing the most exotic natural phenomenon ever recorded, or our first confirmed encounter with technology from beyond the stars, one thing remains certain. The universe just reminded us how little we actually understand about what's possible in the vast darkness between worlds.